Chapter 381 _ Wow! In an instant, a huge blazing feathered flame phoenix vermilion sparrow, straddling the sky, hovered in the air in the blink of an eye, arrogantly looking down at everyone, spreading its wings with a crown. The feathers of the dazzling eyes continued to fall, and in mid-air, the flaming phoenix vermilion sparrow was like the sun, exuding splendid celestial might. Especially on Suzaku's bright crown, there is a person at this moment, with deep cold eyes, staring at the dragon, causing the whole sky to be covered with dark clouds, and it gets dark. The thunder slashed down, and in the flickering light and in the dark, Kaiyu Yanwang vermilion bird turned into a flame and disappeared, led by Chin Luo, followed by Nami, landed down, suppressing the entire venue. How could he show up? In the marine camp, Sengoku looked at Chin Luo and sweated. The situation was not good for them at first, but now Chin Luo has appeared again, and the situation is simply terrible. Everyone was almost on guard. Even Kizaru and Ryokugyu, who were fighting, also distanced themselves and looked at Chin Luo and the three of them vigilantly. Hey! Silently, with a loud bang, Chin Luo's hair stood on end, his pupils were golden and red, and he appeared directly in front of the dragon. With one foot, the eardrum was torn, causing the entire island to vibrate and bombard out. What kind of thing are you, dare to touch the king? Chin Luo sneered. The pupils shrank, the dragon beast turned into a dragon, covered with blue scales, and raised his hand to block his face. The collision of the landslide and the ground fissure, at the moment of the impact, the dragon's face changed greatly, the whole figure flew upside down in an instant, and the endless gravel was knocked into the air, and the two barren mountains collapsed. And the dragon, with his feet deep in the ground, appeared directly 10,000 meters away, with blood overflowing from his mouth. Just when Chin Luo shot the dragon, the air in Shang's hand appeared out of thin air on Chin Luo's left side, forming a shock wave. Ignoring it, Chin Luo stood a foot off the ground and turned to look at the heavenly king, who was bound by lightning chains like a sculpture. There, don't disturb our captain, otherwise the consequences are not something you can bear. The space was torn open, and Nami's hands were filled with lightning, instantly destroying the impact of the bear, kicking out, and directly forcing the bear back. The riot ceased. Long and the others gasped and looked at Chin Luo with cold eyes, but they didn't move. Chin Luo came to Tianwang, stretched out his hand, grabbed the chain of lightning, and cracked layer by layer. Ding! Detected the program of the Robot King, do you want to crack it? At this time, the system suddenly sounded. Chin Luo was a little surprised, but immediately said, yes. Ding! Cracking and activation is in progress. 10. 9. Quote. 1. Ding! The Tianwang program has been successfully cracked. Analyze the master's breath, and the destruction program is lifted. The chain of thunder disappeared, and the dragon thought that the king would destroy it again, but beyond his expectations, the king stopped all actions, which was completely different from the previous temporary calm. With cold eyes, Long looked at Tianwang and Chin Luo, completely unaware of what was going on. Chin Luo's mouth raised. Vivi, Nami, prepare to go back. Before carefully understanding the ability of the king, Chin Luo gave orders in his mind to let the king follow him. The first emperor Chin Luo, you don't take us too seriously. Do you have the ability to take away the king? With a gloomy face, Long followed Shang, Kizaru, and Kushiro, and stopped in front of Chin Luo. The blocking of Long and his group made Nami and Sun Wukong's faces slightly heavier. Holding the King of Heaven in his arms, Chin Luo stepped out and looked at the dragon and the others, his eyes gradually turning red. Go away or die. The frantic Haki blew. Like the Supreme, Chin Luo looked down at the dragon and gave an irresistible will, just as the emperor looked at the commoners. Do you think this is the first emperor's territory? Conqueror looked down. The whole sky was cloudy, the dragon was a little angry, and his body was filled with killing intent. Then all die. The wrath of thunder, the hurricane of fear swept through, the sky seemed to collapse, the infinite thunder flashed, and a will to rule the world made this world surrender and bombarded in everyone's mind. Going backwards, the dragon's face flushed red, and he exerted all his strength on Conqueror, but compared to Qin Luo, it was nothing short of heaven and earth. As for Shang and Kushiro, they also tried their best to stir up their momentum and sword power, but under their domineering and self-respecting will, their heads were constantly hit by heavy hammers, causing their hearts to be dull and slightly dazzled. Ah! A ham rumble. The sky that was originally covered with dark clouds was instantly washed away, and the sky became clear for thousands of miles, with rays of sunlight shining, accompanied by endless thunder. The shaking, the hurricane, the roaring, everything, all fell into chaos. This unnatural scene is no less than the snow in June. The will of all things, the domineering of the mountains and rivers, the command to rule the world, Qin Luo used Conqueror without reservation. Pain was unbearable, even if it was far away. Anagumo felt a roar in his head, the pressure seemed to be facing the heaven and the earth, and he couldn't bear any resistance. PFF'd. Vomited blood in his mouth. Even though Anagumo had reached the admiral level now, he was unbearable under this will. Compared to people with strength like Anagumo, they can more or less support them, but some other vice admiral, holding their heads directly, rolled on the ground with blood from their 7 orifices, and as time passed, their breath began to become weaker and weaker. Up. 0-0. Conqueror alone can make Vice Admiral come to life. It can be seen how far Qin Luo's Conqueror has reached. Leave, leave. Sengoku's eyes were split, and blood overflowed from the corners of his mouth. He dared to swear that this was the strongest Conqueror he had ever encountered in his life. Roger can't compare, and the red hair can't compare. If you stay now, let alone fight, you may be shocked to death. Sengoku and others who are far away, not to mention Long and others who are close at hand. Damn, the dragon's face flushed, and he desperately used his Conqueror to fight against it, and Kushiro's sword power rushed out with all his strength. The ground shook, Qin Luo's eyes narrowed again, and he took a step forward on the spot. The whole island began to shake. Qin Luo said, "Order." Strange fluctuations radiated out, and the entire sky suddenly became silent. Whoa, whoa. The endless seawater lifted up, and the giant behemoths covered the clouds and blocked the sunlight, and appeared densely in the entire sea area. Hu, ho ho. Deafening roar, the seawater boils, and all kinds of sea kings stick out their fangs. Mouth open, Sengoku looked at the sea kings in the surrounding seas. His face was full of cold sweat. He turned his head and looked at the man in the center, for the first time, showing fear. 2. Chapter 382 _ Help me. With a scream, a medium-sized fierce bull, a sea king, with its deep cold horns towering into the clouds, rushed towards the direction of Sengoku and the others. Immediately afterwards, this seemed to be a signal that all kinds of sea kings scrambled to destroy the island group and wanted to kill everyone. Following the heavenly king behind him, Qin Luo rose into the sky and stood in midair, looking coldly and ruthlessly as the endless island group under his feet began to sink. Wherever he caught his eye, there were some violent sea kings. Everyone, by their means to maintain the air, looked at the sea kings with their heads raised and roaring under their feet. Beside her, Nami swallowed her saliva, as if she knew Qin Luo for the first time. Her eyes were full of incredulity. Now even a fool knows that all this is because of Qin Luo. Could it be that Conqueror has been trained to the extreme, and has the ability to summon sea kings? Even if there is no ability to summon sea kings, the power alone is enough to make people surrender. Compared to Nami's shock, Long and others were full of solemnity. The man in front of them, this man was beyond their expectations. Kill them. With a cold exit, Qin Luo looked at the three of Long and issued an order. However, before Nami and Sun Wukong could take action, the king behind Qin Luo changed. Execute the order. Activate the third form of the angel, the four-winged seraph. The powerful force spread. A whole body of black and white beam of light shot up into the sky, and the king of heaven changed again, stretching out his black and white four-winged, deadly empty pupils, and looked at Long and others. Whoa, Whoa! Destroying the black light, it once again turned into a long river, turning the world upside down towards the dragon and several people, covering the past. The sudden movement of the king made Nami open her mouth wide. Chin Luo, what is the situation, Heavenly King? How can you order? Nami's heart was full of doubts. Looking at the embarrassed appearance of Long and others in front of the king, it was full of inconceivable. Don't worry so much, kill all these people. Chin Luo snorted coldly. But Chin Luo, is there any danger? Nami pointed at the Heavenly King, who did not recognize the 6 relatives, because at this moment the Heavenly King was really attacking indiscriminately. Although Chin Luo was not attacked in this direction, looking at the appearance of Long and others, he knew how terrifying the Heavenly King was. Without warning, as if out of control, Chin Luo said to Tian Wang, kill Kizaru unilaterally. As soon as Chin Luo's words fell, the king who was attacking in the distance suddenly stopped, and then, like a program, he began to issue orders without any emotion. Execute command, start search function. Target identified. The body shifted, and the empty pupils of the king stared at Kizaru. Face changed greatly on the spot, and Kizaru yelled, Chin Luo, you bastard. Into golden light, Kizaru rushed out of the clouds, because the endless black light behind him was chasing him, and most importantly, the King of Heaven was very fast and followed him from beginning to end. The crisis of death made Kizaru do his best, and for a while, the sky fell to the ground, all of which were flashes of gold and black and white. Fix the rest. Chin Luo looked at Kizaru and Tian Wang, who were chasing, slightly surprised, and almost laughed. Got it. Nami turned into a thunderbolt and charged directly to the dragon. Dragon, leave it to me, for Nami. Kushiro was born, and the sword chi that was cut by a sharp knife rushed into the sky. And Sun Wukong, no need for words, disappeared at the same moment as the bear, appeared on the head of a sea king, and started a duel. The rest of Chin Luo and Long looked at each other, just like 2 meteors, colliding with each other. Looking at the sparks scattered in the sky, Onagumo was protecting Sengoku, a little impatient. Marshal Sengoku, what should we do? Get out of here and go back to Marineford. Sengoku held his chest, and they were no longer eligible to participate in the current war. Okay, Onagumo nodded, and now they had no choice but to retreat. Garp. Sengoku opened his mouth when he saw the Sea Kings coming in with a punch, but he didn't know what to say. Sengoku, go back with the crane, and when you find the place, send me a letter, provided I'm still alive. Looking up, looking at the battle in the sky, Garp turned to Sengoku with a smile on his face. Onagumo, take them away quickly. After that, Garp rushed directly to Chin Luo and Long's battle circle. Marshal, let's go. Sengoku, Onagumo greeted the surviving marine. After Ryokugyu broke, he left the sea directly. They had to find an island, otherwise, Moonstep would be unable to support it. Boom. The meteorite exploded, the sky, and the wind and clouds turned. In the thunder and lightning flashes, 2 silhouettes rushed past, colliding with a circle of ripples, separating the sky. The flames burned, the atmosphere wrinkled. Chin Luo maintained the Suzaku transformation, standing out of thin air, his eyes were plain. On the opposite side, the dragon maintains a beastly transformation, with cyan scales shining all over his body, and the dragon claws and legs are full of hideousness and muscle swelling, especially the dragon tail, which is extremely impressive. The whole person is completely a compressed humanoid Tyrannosaurus, surrounded by wind, rain and thunder and lightning, like the master of the sky. The gripping claws are sharp, and the sinuous and bulging blue veins all illustrate the enormous power in this humanoid Tyrannosaurus. With his hair fluttering, the flames flashed violently, and Chin Luo disappeared. In an instant, the dragon's face changed greatly with a sense of horror. With instinct, he bent over to hide. The entire atmosphere burst instantly, and the back of the dragon was in a state of disconnection. The naked eye can see that the dark cloud that shrouded again seems to be controlled by a big hand, and it appears huge. The sea of clouds, pushed away. The extreme speed seems to have slowed down. Qinluo maintained the attack, lowered his head, looked at the hiding dragon, his elbows were boiling, and he pressed down sharply. Sensing the pressure on his head, the dragon gritted his teeth, his right elbow was also filled with energy, and he rose to the ground. At the same time, his left hand was bent, and the dragon's claws, which were wrapped in blue scales, were torn away directly towards Qinluo's chest. There was a huge roar, the impact of bones, a burst of air pressure, and a dull explosion. Clenching his fist, his strength was vast. From beginning to end, Qinluo's face was calm, and he punched the dragon's claw. The meteor exploded, a shock wave radiated, and the dragon felt a pain in his left hand, and a huge force rushed in instantly, making him unable to resist, and flew out on the spot. Chapter 383 Hey! In an instant for 1,000 years, a barbed spear was chasing after him. The dragon turned over, and he was close at hand. A hole was stabbed in the sky, and the warm and soft sunlight poured down lightly. The hot baking, under the sun, a shadow appeared over the dragon. Qinluo raised his right foot. The flame was extremely compressed, like a pressure cannon, causing the entire space to whine and step down. Instinctively, the dragon turned sideways, and the dragon's tail was swirling with wind, rain and thunder, and he was about to pull towards Qinluo. However, at this critical moment, Qinluo's eyes widened, and a will to destroy the sky and the earth instantly crushed the dragon's brain nerve. Even if the dragon also has a conqueror, but the two sides are obviously not in the same gap. For this reason, the dragon was lost for a moment. PFF'd. The blood spurting out of the dragon's mouth to the sky. I saw the pain on the dragon's face, and the whole person was like a meteor, smashing on the sea kings on the sea, and there was an explosion on the spot. The medium-sized sea kings, directly turned into a rain of blood. After the impact of this medium-sized sea king, the dragon did not fall into the sea, and maintained his body in an emergency. Vivi lowered his head, looking at the somewhat collapsed chest. Long 26 feet's face was pale. Even if the recovery ability is visible to the naked eye, the stinging pain still deeply stimulated the dragon. Cough, cough. Wiping the blood from his mouth, Long raised his head and looked at the expressionless man. A stern look flashed across his pale face. This guy, his strength has reached the point where he is unstoppable. How did he cultivate? Are there no bottlenecks? Buzz, buzz. With his hands spread out, Long's eyes were full of blue light. His left hand was filled with hurricanes, and his right hand was filled with thunder. Controlling wind, rain and thunder, the dragon's natal ability, without hesitation at this moment, bless it. Like a rocket, soaring into the sky, the sea under the dragon's feet collapsed directly, forming a large pit that cut off the fusion of the ocean currents. With a fierce face, the thunder of the dragon's right fist rose sharply, and it slammed into Qinluo's head. The flames spread, and Qinluo's mouth showed a trace of disdain. There was no need to avoid it at all, and he also clenched his fist and slammed it. The burning sky exploded, the air waves raised energy, the dragon gritted his teeth, cut the wind blade with his left hand, and hit Qinluo's side face. The exciting sensation, Qinluo counterattacked, not only blocked the dragon's two-handed attack, but his right foot came first, facing the dragon's chest, and swept it. Eyelids jumped, like a mountain range swept over, buzzing in the ears, the dragon roared, and the dragon's tail rushed out. The dazzling air pressure is like a knife cut. If an ordinary person approaches here now, he will be crushed by the colliding air pressure in an instant and turned into a rain of blood. The calm resistance, the stubborn impact, no matter what means the dragon used, were all resolved by Qinluo one by one. On the contrary, Qinluo's hair was just a little messy. With only 3 body parts, he was able to resist the dragon's animalization, and looking at the current situation, Qinluo has always suppressed the dragon. The strength of the two sides is no longer the first time they met. The two have changed. There is a saying that is good, when you are improving, others are also improving. However, this sentence is also different. After all, everyone's talent is different, and the main thing is that the dragon made a mistake, and that was right. That's right, in terms of talent, the dragon is also the top, otherwise, there would not be such a powerful force. The only difference between the two sides is that Qin is in power and decentralization, and everything in the First Emperor Pirates is all Nami and Main in dealing with matters of cultivation. He is relatively free. As for Long, most of the time is spent on the government affairs of the Revolutionary Army, so the time for cultivation can be ignored. Qin Luo, on the other hand, spends most of his time in cultivation, and basically does not have time to deal with the government affairs of the First Emperor Pirates. The two, all of a sudden the high and low judgments. What's more, Qin Luo also has a talent incomparable to dragons, that is, the performance of the system, which can gradually increase with practice, and now the performance of Kaiyu Yanwang Suzaku has almost reached more than 95%. Over the years, no one knows how Qin Luo cultivated, and no one knows how many trump cards he has. In short, a conqueror, order is enough to make Qin Luo walk across the world. Although Qin Luo is very stubborn and doesn't like to think at ordinary times, he knows what is the most fundamental thing in this world, and he also knows what he should do. That's right, it is power. Qin Luo knows that in this wrong world, only power is the eternal truth and the premise of everything. Only with power can you have rights, wealth, and freedom. Therefore, Qin Luo only needs to firmly grasp power, then power, wealth, and freedom will be ruled. In this regard, the courage of the dragon is not comparable to that of Qin Luo. Once again, the two of them were red and green, fisted to the flesh, and the air pressure ripped apart the sky and the ground, and was constantly generated between the two, causing a dazzling place to be formed around them. As long as he is not blind, he can see that in Qin Luo's hands, the dragon only has the power to parry. The most important thing is that Qin Luo only used the vermilion bird transformation, and other abilities have not yet appeared. It can be said that if the dragon has no trump cards, it is only a matter of time before he loses. The wind and rain roared, the thunder deepened, the whole world shook, and a thunderstorm swept across, intertwined with chaotic power, swept the sea water, facing Qin Luo, drowning the past. The full strength of his life ability made Long gasp for breath. In addition, he had been suppressed by Qin Luo for 800 points, which caused Long to be very embarrassed now, because Qin Luo's strength had exceeded his expectations. The sky and the earth seemed to have collapsed one after another. The whole sky is roaring constantly. Looking at the terrifying natural disaster, Qin Logan's hair is vertical, and his body is burning with flames, making the sky look like daytime, and the sea water under his feet is beginning to evaporate. The appearance of a fairyland on earth. Vivi leaned over, surrounded by flames. Qin Luo turned on the spot. The huge flame rushed into the sky, then slowly turned into a flame tornado, and slammed into the dragon's storm without showing weakness. The shocking collision, the catastrophic remnants, and the tearing forces turned the surrounding into an abyss, dazzling everything. With golden red eyes, Qin Luo looked at the dragon opposite the storm, and took a step, as if moving the space, and actually appeared directly in front of the dragon. It came in an instant, not enough to shock. Long stared, his back was icy cold, and his face was full of fantasy. PFF'd. Bending his body, his eyes seemed to be crawling out of his sockets. The dragon opened his mouth and vomited blood uncontrollably, and a punch, even from the dragon's back, smashed the black clouds in the sky. How could you have the speed of teleportation? Being grabbed by Qin Luo's hair with one hand, the dragon's facial muscles shrank, and he lost control in a short time. Chapter 384 Nothing is impossible. You are the first person to try my Suzaku's speed, which is similar to what I expected, with a speed that exceeds the speed of sound. Looking at the dragon flatly, Qin Luo was not too excited. In the first positive experiment, the dragon suffered a big loss, which is enough to illustrate the horror of this speed. The flames burned, and behind Qin Luo, two barbed spears were aimed directly at the dragon. When the crisis of death came, Long's body twitched briefly because of Qin Luo's heavy blow, and he couldn't escape at all. In an emergency, the atmosphere was booming. In the distance, a human-shaped cannonball swayed an endless hurricane and came straight to Chin Luo. His hands were pitch black. Lo! Vivi frowned. Chin Luo reached out and stopped directly in front of him. The huge force, like a tsunami, made Chin Luo fly upside down, followed closely by two barbed spears, rushing towards him. Turning slightly to the side, easily dodging the spear, Chin Luo stood in the air, looking at Garp, who was standing next to the dragon, with a sneer. Old man. The control of the body was restored. All this happened in just 2 or 3 seconds, and the thrills contained in it were unimaginable. You underestimate him, that fellow, but a lunatic. Serious expression, Garp was gushing out of mist, and his bulging muscles were full of explosions. Even if he was old and his hair was gray, the power contained in his body was immeasurable. I'm taking it lightly. After a few conversations, the dragon's damage has already recovered, at least on the surface. Old man, this is the justice you insisted on before. Don't you think this moment is full of ridiculousness? The figure slowly moved sideways and narrowed the distance. Even in the face of Garp and Long, the two top powerhouses, Chin Luo was not at all disadvantaged. Boy, the biggest mistake in my life was not killing you when you were growing up. Eyes were cold, and Garp was filled with killing intent. At this moment, the two sides no longer needed to understand who was right and who was wrong. Really, then now you can try, diaresis. Chin Luo looked cold. The wind and clouds roared, and one after another thunder fell, and in the flickering light, Chin Luo's cold face was revealed. Both sides stared. Majestic killing intent, scattered down, endless conqueror, rivaling each other, causing the entire sky to be in chaos. Facing Chin Luo's conqueror, even Garp and Long Heli were suppressed, which made the two of them startled. Almost at the same time, a thunderbolt fell, the three of them disappeared at the same time, and the sky exploded. Chin Luo resisted the dragon's side kick with one hand and Garp's punch with the other. The powerful impact, every time it hits the flesh, the shreds of punching energy it exudes are enough to kill a small sea king. Especially Garp's fist, every punch seems to be like Paka's, carrying a big mountain, that kind of force, few people can bear. And Chin Luo, at this moment, is facing hard steel. If there is no dragon, Chin Luo can also suppress Garp like a dragon. For a while, in the face of the alliance between Long and Garp, Chin Luo had the upper hand at the beginning, but as time passed, Long and Garp's running in became more and more tacit, and slowly, Chin Luo began to fall into the disadvantage. But even so, Chin Luo still suffered a lot from Long and Garp by virtue of his speed. Punch collided with Garp. Chin Luo tilted his head, dodged the dragon's attack, and then quickly rotated his body, kicked the dragon horizontally, and directly kicked the dragon out. In an instant, he disappeared. Chin Luo appeared behind Garp, a barbed spear condensed in his hand, and stabbed directly at Garp's back, but was stopped by Garp's battle-hardened body and instinct. Covered by boiling arms, Garp grabbed the spear. The tip of the spear had pierced into his chest, even spilling blood, and exuding the smell of meat. With a sullen face, Chin Luo clenched his hands tightly and increased his strength, causing Garp to grit his teeth and hold the spear in his other hand. Old man, die. The right foot pierced through, the atmosphere whined, Garp's face changed greatly, his face distorted on the spot, like a meteor, and flew out backwards. Cold wind came from his back, and Garp got a good chance for the dragon. For this reason, Chin Luo couldn't stop the dragon's attack, when he kicked hard on Chin Luo's back. At the same moment, Chin Luo turned over and threw the spear. With two muffled noises, blood shot, Chin Luo and Long, both flew backwards. Straight into the sky, the huge momentum spread, and at this moment, Garp appeared out of thin air, and used his physical skills to face Chin Luo who was flying backwards. Combined skills great collapse. The red body, the huge energy condensed his fists, and at this moment Garp used the Six Kings Spear move, which was very powerful. The rushing force made Chin Luo's eyelids jump, so he could only forcefully move, his hands resisted in front of his head, followed by a force of landslides and earth fissures, which made Qin Luo unable to bear the tremendous force, and his hands directly he hit his face, and it was red and swollen with blood. Rapid retreat. Qin Luo red eyes, not only abruptly endured the huge force, but also fiercely counterattacked. His knees upright and frantic, Garp's originally successful face turned pale on the spot, because he didn't expect Qin Luo to endure the impact forcefully, so he didn't have time to dodge. Flesh and blood collided, and Garp was bent into a shrimp, and the blood vessels on his neck, like earthworms, climbed up his cheeks. Just when Qin Luo was about to pursue the victory, a dragon claw on the side, like a black tiger digging its heart, tore the atmosphere. The nick of time, Qin Luo's CV moved sideways, and along with 5 bloodstains, the dragon's claw slid across the middle of Qin Luo and Garp. The elbow was pressed down, and the huge force caused the dragon's hand to hurt. At this moment, Garp kicked out and slammed directly on Qin Luo's chest. He could vaguely hear the sound of bone cracking. Mouth were bleeding, and Qian's seemed to feel no pain at all. Qin Luo also kicked the dragon's waist. With the blood splashing, the 3 of them shot at the same time, and a huge roar rolled out. The 2 sides widened their distance. Lifting up into the sky and pressing down with one hand, the entire sky was densely packed, with countless swords, spears, swords and halberds, breaking through the speed of sound, turning into a long river of weapons, and pressing towards Garp and the dragon. The strong wind and thunder, Long's eyes were blue, obviously using his ability, so that Qin Luo's attack was intercepted directly on the way. Disappeared in an instant, Garp found an opportunity, and with his unparalleled shaving, he flashed behind Qin Luo again. There was little smoke, Garp was red all over, and bursts of explosive force burst out, apparently entering a certain mode, and it didn't look like old age and frailty at all. Clenching his fist, Qin Luo squinted his face, and without hesitation, he slammed out horizontally, just slamming into Garp's fist. Landslides and fissures, huge collisions, raising air pressure, and humming. Chapter 385 Then Long came, and the father and son joined forces and began to suppress Qin Luo in all aspects. Without hesitation, he said that in this world, with the cooperation of Garp and Long, to support 100 moves is already one of the top strong. But from the current point of view, even if Qin Luo fell into the disadvantage, he would fight back from time to time. That is to say, in the face of the cooperation between Garp and Long, Qin Luo not only did not collapse, but instead resisted the court. This is enough to show that Qin Luo of power. Most importantly, Garp just entered a certain mode, coupled with old age and frailty. This situation will not last long at all, because Garp is no longer young. Moreover, unlike Qin Luo and Long, Garp has unreasonable resilience and stamina. With the passage of time, Garp will eventually be eliminated. The battle has entered a fever pitch, and the dangers contained in it are simply incomprehensible to ordinary people. If the battle on Qin Luo's side is tragic, then the battle between Sun Wukong and Shang is exciting and full of ghosts and ghosts. Like ghosts, it is difficult to know their figures at all, and only a loud noise can be heard from time to time, followed by countless blood flowers, and all the Sea Kings turned into pieces of meat. Unconsciously, the 2 disappeared one after another, and they shuttled through the sea. On the King class, the Sea King class has been regarded as an island, and every bombardment will make the Sea King class roar. Standing on a medium-sized Sea King, Sun Wukong and the bear are like ants, small and pitiful. Vivi was gasping for breath, and the 2 had fought each other more than once. From the current point of view, Shang fell into the lower winds, and no part of his body was intact. Compared with Sun Wukong, he was only slightly injured. In the face of a big enemy, the bear has never encountered such a strong opponent. The speed advantage for others is useless in front of this monkey. Moreover, his ability was completely offset by the opponent, and the most gnashing of teeth was that the opponent's physical fitness was too strong. As long as he was caught once, he would be greeted by a violent storm. Shang didn't dare to take it lightly, because this was the most difficult opponent he had ever encountered in his history. His hands were vertical, and fluorescent golden hoops were circulating. Sun Wukong's sharp eyes contained anticipation, because the man opposite was qualified to let him use all his strength, and he could even have a hearty battle. I hope you can give me a little surprise. CGAC around Sun Wukong's body began to appear vaguely with water ripples, just like folding, very mysterious. Without answering, the bear just had a serious face and got ready. The right foot stepped down and disappeared out of thin air. Then, the bear also disappeared in place. The next moment, the two appeared thousands of meters away, punching each other, a ripple, setting off a monstrous wave. Because of the low ability of both sides, Sun Wukong directly gained the upper hand, and various fighting techniques put the bear in a crisis. One stick will decide the world. Invisible afterimage, a faint fluorescent golden hoop was circulating, and Sun Wukong knocked it. His face changed, Shang stretched out his hand, the meatball in his palm swelled, obviously he had suffered a lot before. With one stick in one palm, the sound exploded out of thin air, and a hurricane suddenly swayed between the two of them. Reversing, a trace of pain flashed on the bear's face, and his left hand quickly patted Sun Wukong. Vivi frowned, a flash of excitement flashed in his pupils, and saw Sun Wukong move his body horizontally and quickly counterattack, blasting the entire field with one stick. With a groan, at this moment, the bear's ability has no effect at all in front of Sun Wukong. His entire arm trembled and he stepped back. Following closely behind, Sun Wukong joined his hands together, condensing high-intensity power. Ruyi sweep. The atmosphere screamed, the entire sea shook, and the sea kings around the two roared uncomfortably. Disappearing out of thin air, the bear used teleportation, but at the moment he appeared, Sun Wukong appeared beside the bear from beginning to end, which made the bear feel powerless. No choice but to resist. The huge air pressure caused a shocking wave, and the bear vomited blood. The figure was like a streamer, running through the sea kings one after another, and finally left the battle circle and smashed on an isolated island. At this moment, the battle between Sun Wukong and Shang has deviated from the center and appeared on the edge. Immediately after, Sun Wukong disappeared in place, appeared on the deserted island, and took high-strength suppression on the bear. Boom, boom, underscore. Dark clouds covered it, as if it had collapsed. Under the thunder, standing in the air, Nami was surrounded by electric lights, causing the entire space to be rendered in an azure blue, full of blue beauty. On the opposite side, Kushiro's mouth was overflowing with blood, black smoke was still exuding from his body, and there was a smell of burning. Your strength should be the sword god realm that Perona said, a swordsman that surpasses the great swordsman. Raising her hand and pinching her chin, Nami looked at Kushiro, especially the sword light that filled the air, making him feel a little bit torn. As expected of the thunder god Nami of the First Emperor Pirates, you are so strong, why are you willing to join the First Emperor Pirates? Kushiro looked at his face with disgust, and felt the will of the circles of attacks in the air. The woman in front of her should be a thunderfruit-capable person, and her strength has already surpassed the 5 emperors, but Kushiro couldn't understand why this guy would be willing to be someone else's subordinate. You're not the first to ask such an idiot question. Nami's expression was indifferent, and there was no sign of anger, only calm and ridicule to Kushiro. Looks like a lot of people want to know. Squinting, Kushiro's hands are vertical, a trace of sword light is visible. You're going to die soon anyway, so I'll satisfy your curiosity. Her face gradually became serious. Nami stared at Kushiro, saying, just because he is my man is the king of this world, the real king, the king of this world. It turns out that. Kushiro was stunned for a moment. No wonder, the combination of men and women is not tiring. Chichibukai, the 5 emperors, the revolutionary army, the marines, the world government, this sea, can't stop him, this world is within our grasp. Nami looked at the sky, stretched out her hand as if she had grasped the whole world, her surging momentum rushed into the sky, carrying endless thunder, roaring under the entire sky. The Revolutionary Army is the stepping stone for the first Emperor pirates to reach the top, so go to hell. With sharp eyes, Nami opened her hands, and the thunderous catastrophe in the sky turned into a million-meter dragon, tearing apart the clouds, exuding glorious heavenly power, rippling the atmosphere, and roaring out of the cage. The terrifying feeling of the explosion, the whole atmosphere is full of sharp edges, and before the thunder dragon arrives, Kushiro feels a tingling feeling. Thunder Thunder Dragon Catastrophe. With a face of madness, Nami looked at Kushiro and pressed her hands violently. As if facing the enemy, a cold sweat dripped from Kushiro's forehead, and subconsciously, Kushiro looked at the vast dragon rushing down from the sky, gritted his teeth, was full of sword energy, threw his right hand under his armpit, and waved it sharply upwards. Chapter 386 Cliff, slashing the sky. The layers were broken, the sky was torn apart, and a ring-shaped waveless slash disappeared in front of him. The next moment, the sky roared, and the 1 million-meter vast thunder dragon was actually divided into 2.5, forming a thunder prison. Ha ha, this is the swordsman that surpasses the great swordsman, I like it. The thunder dragon split. Nami was cold and Isho used her abilities again, and the thunder, which was originally divided into 2.5, turned into 2, like a pair of dragons playing with beads, claws, and charged towards Kushiro again. The explosion sounded, and Kushiro attacked one after another. Every slash was like a sky, tearing the sky into 2 halves. However, as soon as Thunder Dragon was eliminated, Kushiro's swordsman intuition caused the hairs on his body to explode. To be honest, if Perona, slut met you, she would be more excited than me, but unfortunately, you met me. The right hand was free of electric light, gradually compressing, the surrounding air was whimpering, a beam of thunder light, only the size of a finger, in a flash of 1,000 years, directly from Kushiro's chest, penetrated the past. Fast, it is too fast. Even Kushiro's swordsman intuition is difficult to detect. With a grunt, blood spurted out, Kushiro's face turned pale on the spot, he got up. There was no intention of close combat at all. Nami kept a certain distance from Kushiro from the beginning to the end. After all, she had a lot of discussions with Perona, so more or less, Nami knew the weaknesses of swordsmen, so she has been carrying out long-range attacks. Enjoy the feast that follows. Thunderbolt, World Destruction Thunder Tribulation. Rising from the sky, Nami looked up, surrounded by azure blue thunder, and she could no longer see her face. Boom, boom, underscore. There was no light in the sun and the moon, as if a omen, a house-sized thunder column descended from the sky, followed closely, densely, one after another, as if a thunder robbery, submerged the entire area where Kushiro was located. It is completely a sea of thunder. Under this natural disaster, not many people in the world today dare to resist. The field of swords stretched out, and Kushiro sensed the danger of death. With only a radius of 100 meters, he competed with the thunder pillars that descended from the sky. Her eyes were blue, and at this moment Nami was a blue luminous body, looking at Kushiro, who was constantly compressed by the thundering ocean. A trace of cruelty flashed on her face. Fight with me to consume Thor's wrath. The thunder in both hands rose sharply, Nami pulled close, and the whole sea began to boil. The next moment, Kushiro bent down, only to feel that a mountain appeared on his back, making it difficult for him to breathe. Immediately afterwards, the turbulent flow became empty, extremely brilliant. The black clouds in the whole sky stopped, everything seemed to freeze, and the next moment, an abnormal airflow turned, and an unimaginable energy was torn out. With the force of squeezing, Kushiro suddenly felt like the sky was falling, and his entire body was out of control. PFF'd. The unimaginable distortion of the field caused Kushiro to hit him hard, causing his entire internal organs to suffer heavy damage, and blood began to overflow from the 7 orifices. Nausea and dizziness, at this moment, surrounded Kushiro's entire mind, causing him to be mentally chaotic. In a short period of time, he lost his sense of direction. At this moment, a spear rushed in and stabbed Kushiro. Gritting his teeth and bleeding from his eyes, Kushiro forcibly twisted his body, trying to avoid the spear's attack, but, between the electric light and flint, his body was out of control again, as if a gravitational force was pulling him, making him unable to move his body. Flesh and blood flew, and the entire chest was penetrated. Kushiro lowered his head, unbelievable. Instant thunder and sky flash. Outside the ocean of thunder, Nami shot again, compressing the high concentration thunder in her hand, forming a ray of light and pounced on Kushiro. He wanted to resist, but it was too late. Because of the chest pain being penetrated, Kushiro was still in a state of numbness. The most important thing was that there was a tearing force around him, which was controlling him, making it difficult for him. Silently, the light penetrated Kushiro's forehead, and everything began to calm down. No, I didn't expect that your strength is so strong that I won't be wrong. His eyes began to disintegrate, and the sword energy began to disappear. Kushiro looked at Nami, who was panting and dripping with cold sweat not far away, and showed a smile. Then, like a rootless duckweed, he fell towards the sea. The vastness is boundless, and the temperature of the burning has begun to evaporate the sea. With the bombardment of landslides and ground fissures, the three figures fly upside down at the same time, and the blood sprayed along the way, like a blooming blood lotus, is extremely dazzling. Half squinting, Chin Luo's face was red and swollen. He reached out and wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. In just a moment, the damage he suffered has returned to normal. This terrifying resilience made the opposing dragon and Garp full of gnashing teeth. Ha, ha. As if gasping for breath, Garp's upper body was bare, the explosive muscles had been dyed red, and the collapse on his chest was the culprit that restricted Garp's breathing difficulties. Compared with Garp's misery, Long is much better. After all, he is also a mythical capable person, and his healing power is far higher than Garp's. Old man, you better go. Turning his head and looking at the pale face, there was some worry in Long's eyes, and before he knew it, the old man had turned white and was old. You alone can't deal with him. 0. There was a flash of pain on his face, and along with a clicking sound, Garp's collapsed chest was straightening up, apparently using life return to maintain his peak. Long didn't speak, because he knew that what Garp said was the truth, and he was no longer the man's opponent by himself. Today, let us father and son join forces. Garp looked at the dragon and grinned Isho, with a hint of apology in his eyes, as if he never fulfilled his responsibility as a father. You don't take me too seriously. Opposite, Chin Luo's face was gloomy, looking at the father-son relationship between Garp and Long, full of sneer. Chin Luo, you will surely die today. Long turned around and looked at Chin Luo sternly, his eyes full of anger. Chin Luo didn't answer, but the flames on his body began to erupt like a volcano. Disappearing out of thin air, Chin Luo turned into a flame, and along the way, two flame figures condensed and rushed directly to the dragon. The shadow of the vermilion bird roared out. Gaze, Chin Luo appeared above Garp and swept his foot across the sky. The whole sky roared. His whole body was tense, and Garp didn't dare to take it lightly. Using all his strength, his right fist was like a fallen star, and he slammed it towards Chin Luo. At the same time, the dragon on the other side was directly dragged by the shadows of the two vermilion birds, and in a short period of time, he was unable to withdraw. 2. Chapter 387 _ Old man, let's start with your death. Emerged from the collision between Chin Luo and Garp, turning into a halo, rippling out. The iron fist was in pain, Garp's face was pale, his pupils widened, and he shot directly out. Immediately after, Chin Luo turned into a rainbow light and appeared in front of Garp in an instant. With his fingers spread out, a different deep purple flame shot directly at Garp. Critical moment, Garp's fighting instinct appeared, his left fist went out to sea like a dragon, emptied the atmosphere in front of him, stirred up the vast power, and hit Chin Luo's hand. However, at the moment of the collision, the purple flame without any temperature directly caught Garp, Garp's left fist. How is it possible? There was no pain, but Garp's current expression was full of panic, because his left hand had begun to dissolve silently. Teeth, Garp says nothing said, rushing directly towards the sea. Along with the spray, Garp went deep into the sea, staring at the purple flames that had burned to his wrists. His eyes were horrified. It is not extinguished, and even the sea cannot be removed. This deep purple flame is independent, without any restrictions, and completely violates the principle of mutual restraint of all things. The water turned, and with a thud, Chinluo also jumped into the sea, looking at Garp with a suffocated expression, showing murderous intent. Although he couldn't feel any pain, Garp couldn't help feeling creepy when he saw his hand being swallowed up silently. The right hand stood up. Since the sea could not drown the purple flame, it could only chop off the entire left hand. Bang! A dull voice sounded, the water swept through, and Garp's pupils widened, looking at Chinluo who was holding his right hand tightly. He was only stunned for a moment, and then he kicked out with his right foot. When Chinluo and Earl Hong were fighting, they were not afraid of the sea, and they were known by many people from the forces, but I heard it was heard, I saw it with my own eyes, I saw it with my own eyes, the difference is not a star. For example, Garp, although he was prepared in his heart, he personally felt this unreasonable scene, and his face was full of incredible colors. Brazenly collided, Chinluo also kicked out his right foot, and the huge strength of the two stirred up the entire sea in an instant. Cruel Isho, Chinluo looked at Garp who only had the power to parry. The more he fought, the more fierce he was, that is, he would not let the opponent cut off his left arm. Therefore, in just a short while, the purple flame had spread to Garp's left shoulder. It would penetrate the chest, and by then, Garp would be dead. The crisis of death had come, and Garp was so anxious, but Chinluo's attack, like a violent storm, continued without giving him the slightest chance at all. Old thing, go to hell. He opened his mouth and spit out silent words. The purple flames had spread to Garp's left chest, and were still eroding away from his body. Opportunity, Chinluo put his knee on Garp's stomach. On the spot, his eyes were ferocious. Garp opened his mouth and vomited blood. Reaching out and pinching Garp's neck, Chinluo looked up at the sea and rose directly into the sky, breaking through the sea. As soon as they set out to sea, Chinluo's ears were winded. He pinched Garp with one hand and clenched his fist with the other, and slammed it out. With the roar, the distance was opened, and at this moment, Long looked at Chinluo in embarrassment, and his eyes were extremely cold. Obviously, in this short period of time, 2 Suzaku shadows have been resolved. Let go of the old man. Garp, whose whole body was surrounded by purple flames, his heart throbbing. I'll give it to you, do you dare to take it? Looking indifferent, Chinluo threw Garp directly to the dragon like throwing garbage. Old man. Don't touch me. With an angry roar, Garp's expression changed drastically as he watched the dragon come hurriedly, and he directly stopped him. I'm already powerless, now you're not his opponent, go. Garp stared at the dragon, looking a little anxious. Old man. His eyes were split, and the dragon twisted his face. He saw Garp's body, right in front of his eyes, slowly turning into fly ash. Help me tell Luffy. Without any pain, Garp looked at the dragon and opened his mouth, but halfway through the words, his eyes completely collapsed. Old man. Running away, Garp disappeared without a sound, as if it never existed, and nothing was left. Tears flowed down his face, and Long looked at the empty midair. The painful tearing feeling made it hard for him to breathe, and his eyes almost broke out of their sockets, unbearable. How could? Hey! In the absence of the dragon, a long spear slashed directly and penetrated the dragon's left shoulder. If the dragon hadn't shifted in an emergency, perhaps this long spear would have penetrated his heart. Chinluo. Looking up, the dragon was as ferocious as a ghost. The dragon held the spear in one hand and pulled it out directly. Along with the blood that splattered, the dragon looked like a madman. The violent conqueror swept the sky. That creepy killing intent made the whole space even more so the temperature dropped to freezing point in an instant. Long's hatred did not affect Qinluo at all. Standing out of thin air, Qinluo looked at Long indifferently, with a hint of irony on his face. "I'm going to kill you." It was so painful that the old man died right in front of his eyes, and he didn't even leave the least corpse, which made the dragon feel like a hype. His chest seemed to burst, and his heart was torn apart. Endless brilliance shone, accompanied by a roar of a beast soaring in the sky, a behemoth that penetrated into the clouds, surrounded by wind, rain and thunder, protruding its head. Horns like a deer, head like a camel, eyes like a rabbit, neck like a snake, belly like a mirage, scales like a fish, claws like an eagle, palms like a tiger, ears like a cow. The whole body has blue scales, lifelike, hundreds of meters long, extremely of ferocity. The airflow turned, and the endless wind, rain and thunder began to be sucked in. I saw Qinglong opened his mouth wide, and a ball of light began to cover everything. Roar. Angrily spit out, the long river, the dazzling dragon breath, like a beam of light, facing Qinluo, came silently. His expression was a little dignified. At this moment, the dragon's full beast transformation made Qinluo feel a little danger, especially the dragon's breath emerging now, which made him unable to stop. Tighten up. With his hands open, a trace of flames exploded. Qinluo took a step forward, and the same flame beam crossed out. Brazenly collided, the entire sky was dim and dark, only the two beams of light in the sky were constantly intertwined. Circles of air pressure, constantly circling, swaying overturned rivers and seas. The situation is desperate. Qinluo shot and blocked the dragon's breath directly, which made the dragon full of anger. Today, he must kill this man. Roar. The soaring king of all beasts pierced through the hearts of the people. With the dragon's roar, the entire sky began to collapse. The endless storms and thunder, as if the pillar of the sky had collapsed, turned towards Qinluo, subverting the past. At this moment, Long made a full effort to create a natural disaster. His hair was flying, his sleeves were swayed up, Qinluo's eyes were golden red. Watching the collapse that day, he made a counterattack. Chapter 388 Suzaku, the blaze of the 9 suns. The infinite brilliance, the 9 round light group, flashed rapidly, and the 9 burning beams continued to rotate and bombarded out violently. When the meteorite hit the earth, everything lost its color, and a burning sky exploded, linking the previous and the next, with a circle of ripples, tearing apart the space, turning into a halo, and destroying everything along the way. In the center, a mushroom cloud towering into the clouds, shining with various rays of light, changed the entire field. For a time, it was chaotic, and a tearing force radiated out. A grain of origin swelled rapidly. Qinluo opened his mouth, blood splashed, as if he had suffered an unimaginable tear. The whole person turned into a streamer, smashed into the sea, and disappeared. At the same time, a dragon roar resounded in the sky, full of pain. Transformed into a human form, Long Qichao bleeds, and many places of flesh and blood disappeared, revealing the white bones, dripping with blood. Perhaps due to luck, the dragon smashed directly on an isolated island. On the spot, the isolated island was torn apart and sank quickly. However, all these disasters have only just begun. The entire 26 seas began to shake, like an earthquake, and the intertwined forces in the center were like an atomic bomb explosion, instantly clearing a sea area, setting off a wave of thousands of meters, and looking at it from the sky, you will find that the sea seems to be used by God with both hands. Moved out in all directions, and at the center was a riotous dark abyss of meteorites. The sea water splashed and rushed into the air. Qinluo was standing in the air, bleeding from his mouth constantly. On his chest, there were 2 scars that could be seen deep in the bones, as if they had been cut alive by someone with a knife, and he could see the beating inside. Heart. However, the naked eye can see that these 2 bloody wounds are healing at an unreasonable speed. Garp alive before must also be Suzaku's deepest strength, and such a fatal wound, its own healing power can easily be repaired automatically. Observation Hockey spread and found a direction. Chinluo looked coldly, turned into a rainbow, and disappeared in place. On the other side, Long was lying in a piece of gravel, and the scars all over his body were only a lot more than Chinluo. Although his own resilience was healing quickly, it was still a little worse than Chinluo. Before he could breathe, the dragon's expression changed, and he shot back without thinking. Ding! A flaming spear was inserted where the dragon lay before, and it followed, one after another, swords, spears, swords and halberds, and began to fill the entire broken island. The hurricane and the thunder were intertwined, and the dragon used his ability to block some deadly weapons. 3 feet off the ground, Chinluo appeared in front of the dragon, his eyes widened. Exhausted all over, Long knew that he was not the man's opponent. Compared with his miserable appearance, the scars on the opponent's body had already begun to scar. There was no need for words at all. Chinluo's eyes narrowed, and he disappeared directly in place. The next moment, the dragon turned sideways, a storm swept up, a ravine that spread to the sky, split the sea, and disappeared at the end of the sky. The next second, the hairs exploded, and the dragon's hands were in front of his face, and a whip leg came horizontally at this moment. The huge power made the dragon unbearable, and he vomited blood in his mouth on the spot, turning it into a streamer. Stepping out, Chinluo seemed to have turned into a golden ribbon, and the refracted ripples remained motionless, like a three-dimensional frieze. From beginning to end, Chinluo followed the dragon. The speed has surpassed the sonic boom and reached the extreme. Hot pursuit, Chinluo's hand transformed, and a barbed spear stabbed at the dragon from close at hand. But at this moment, Chinluo felt a crisis, which made his back feel cold and his heart beat violently. Abandoning the assassination, Chinluo turned his footsteps, and the ribbon changed to distance himself from Long. At this time, the whole atmosphere was broken, and the dragon was caught by one person and stood on the sea. The figure stopped, Chinluo looked up, and Vivi's pupils could not help changing color, full of fantasy. R.O. Roger. Looking at the person who saved the dragon, Chinluo couldn't believe it. Full of subversion, this person turned out to be the dead One Piece King of Pirates, Gul D. Roger. Meet again, as expected, you can break the rules. Letting go of the dragon, Roger grinned Isho, looking at Chinluo's expression, very satisfied. Silent, Chinluo's mood was difficult to calm down. He just looked at Roger dangerously, racking his brains thinking about it all. For Chinluo, the current shock is just a little big. If it were someone else, he would have gone crazy. After all, a big man who has been dead for decades suddenly appeared in front of him, and the strange feeling all explained the great conspiracy of the sky, which made people feel cold everywhere. Standing out of thin air, the two sides held each other. Chinluo's eyes flashed from time to time, but he did not take the lead. Chinluo's calmness made Roger feel a little surprised. After all, he was not dead. If it was someone else, he should have been asking questions. But now, looking at Chinluo's appearance, he didn't show any expression. On the contrary, he was very indifferent. You have nothing to ask. Hardy Isho. Roger was the first to break the silence, and the depths of his eyes were filled with a trace of hatred, but they were well hidden. Frowning, Chinluo still didn't ask, just thought. It doesn't surprise you that I'm still alive, but what I want to ask is, how are these stepping stones like a kainu, Bigmom, Kaido? To you. Full of joking, Roger unleashes a depth charge. This time, Chinluo spoke up. You have lived in another identity all these years, who is it? Crack, crack. Roger sighed, clapped his hands, and said tisk tisk, they all say that your first emperor is a brainless idiot, but now it seems that it's not that you are stupid, but that you don't even bother to think. After speaking, Roger's whole body began to change. Slowly, Chinluo's eyes became more and more strange. Vegapunk. Roger who had completely changed, Chinluo's heart skipped a beat. This person was Vegapunk. Become One Piece King of Pirates, start a big voyage, become the world's #1 scientist, sneak into the world government, and establish a revolutionary army. It seems that your layout is very big. Squinting, Chinluo felt the crisis. The man in front of him actually controlled the whole world. Smart. With a snap of his fingers, he turned into Roger of Vegapunk, and said, whether it is Vegapunk or Roger, it is just one of my identities, in order to gradually weaken the regime of the world government. Generous, Roger directly stated his plan. You succeeded. Having to be convinced, Chinluo looked at this man with palpitations in his heart. Chapter 389 _ Then what do you mean now? Are you my enemy? Eyes were getting colder. Chinluo looked at Roger sternly. He didn't care who the opponent was. As long as he was an enemy, he would be destroyed. No, I'm not your enemy. Everything I do is for you to grow up. Shaking his head, Roger exuded kindness. Not the enemy. You thought I would believe it? Kukai Isho, full of sarcasm, Chinluo's whole body started to burn with flames. What's more, the grievance between you and me is not a single star, your son, but I solved it with my own hands. Chinluo's extreme provocation made Roger's face a little sullen. There are no absolutes. Spreading his hands, Roger didn't get angry, but shrugged. At this moment, a few tyrannical breaths are rushing towards here at a high speed from the horizon. It seems that our common enemy has already discovered it. Vivi turned around. Roger looked at the tyrannical aura, and said something incomprehensible to Chinluo. I'm not suitable to appear now. If you can survive under his blow, then you are qualified to join forces with me. Otherwise, I will wait for the next transmigrator. Holding the dragon, Roger didn't explain anything to Chinluo. On the contrary, more and more questions had been buried in Chinluo's heart. Also, pay more attention to the red-haired boy, his perseverance is very good. Then see you next time, I hope you are still alive. With a final warning, Roger grabbed the dragon and disappeared. Chinluo didn't act, just watched Roger and Long leave. Other side, where Tenno and Kizaru are. Even if Kizaru has the rapidity, under the bombardment of the king, most of his stamina has been consumed. The current speed can be said to be far less random than at the beginning. However, even so, the king can't help Kizaru. Perhaps sensing the disappearance of the dragon's breath, Kizaru gritted his teeth, left the battle circle, and retreated wholeheartedly, while the Heavenly King, as if there was some kind of restriction, actually stood still after reaching a certain distance. As for the battle between Sun Wukong and Shang, the winner was also divided. In the end, Sun Wukong killed Shang, then joined with Nami, and was rushing towards Chinluo. Captain Diaresis. Flashing beside Chinluo, Nami and Sun Wukong looked a little embarrassed. After returning to his senses, Chinluo nodded, retracted his thoughts, and turned his eyes to the distance, the breaths that were getting closer and closer. Go. There is no need to think about it, the few breaths that come must be the support of the world government. Understood. Both Nami and Sun Wukong glanced at the horizon in disappointment, then turned around resolutely, followed behind Chinluo, and came to Tianwang's side. At this moment, the king, lost his goal, fell into silence again. Wow! The flames shone, and a mysterious vermilion bird stood with its wings outstretched. Everyone boarded the Suzaku, turned into a rainbow light, and disappeared in place. As Chinluo and others left, it didn't take long for the atmosphere to explode, and 5 figures appeared on the sea that had not yet calmed down. 3 of them were the heads of the 3 Tenryubito families, the other was the Gorosei, 5 elders, and the last was a masked CPO. Has left. One of the rulers of Tenryubito, with a heavy face, looked at the fading scratches on the horizon, and spoke first. It's still a step too late, I didn't expect that guy to die. Somewhat sentimental, the Gorosei, 5 elders among them, sighed, apparently bemoaning the colleague killed by Kizaru. Dionysus, see where the king is. A ruler of the Hephaestus family with a short beard and only one eye left, looked at an old man in a suit beside him. Without answering, Dionysus just moved his hand. His right hand was filled with ripples, and he touched the atmosphere in front of him, and a strange scene appeared. It was the scene of Qin Luo leaving with the King of Heaven. This is the first emperor. It seems that the King of Heaven was taken away by the first emperor. Gorosei, 5 elders, who held the first generation of ghosts, pointed to Qin Luo in the picture and explained to everyone. Isn't this war the revolutionary army? How did the first emperor pirates intervene? Among the 3 Tenryubido rulers, Ming Atlas said, Dionysus, can you return to the tide? No way, the stronger the person, the more my ability will be cancelled. There is only this fragment. Shaking his head, Dionysus directly removed his ability. Go back and report first. This time we're here to bring back the King of Heaven. Just go back like this. Are you sure that Lord Yimu won't be angry? What do you mean? Go to the first Emperor Pirates to recapture the King of Heaven. If you haven't done anything for hundreds of years, let's start with the flag of the 5 emperors. The first Emperor Pirates are not easy, you guys are taking it too lightly. Gorosei, 5 elders Vivi frowned, trying to persuade. You can go back if you're afraid. The others glanced at Gorosei, 5 elders with a hint of disdain on their faces. HMPH, my knife hasn't been stained with blood for a long time. Shaking all over, if you go back to face that person alone, you might as well go directly to the first Emperor Pirates. Then let's go. A group of 3 Tenryubido family rulers, a Gorosei 5 elders, plus a CPO, just like this, toward the first Emperor Pirates, subverting the past. The first Emperor Pirates, since Qin Luo, Nami and others left, nothing has changed, it is still so prosperous and harmonious. Not long ago, Red Hair and others returned to the first Emperor Pirates, and there was no chain reaction. However, when Red Hair left, Mane did some investigation. The results obtained were somewhat ordinary and strange, because Beckman and others had been in the Sabayati archipelago, which was normal, but the strange thing was that the Red Hair disappeared overnight. When the Red Hair and the others came back, Mane was still as usual and didn't move, but secretly, she was already vigilant. The current sea is no longer the sea it used to be, and even Marine and the 5 emperors have begun to be eliminated. If they do not want the first Emperor Pirates to fall into a doomed place, then they must be vigilant. Diaresis, Lee. Suddenly, in the distant sky, a chirping sound resounded through the heavens and the earth, and the ever-large Suzaku turned into a long rainbow and disappeared in the blink of an eye. However, when approaching the sea area of the first Emperor Pirates, Suzaku stopped in midair, and even shifted in one direction. You dare to chase, don't you take us seriously? Nami's eyes were cold as she looked at the empty sky, where 5 tyrannical forces were approaching quickly. Since you are here to die, then you will fulfill them. Sun Wukong, Zhao of Qian, had a cold face. He thought that after they left, the other party should give up chasing, but he didn't expect that he has been chasing here. This is simply provocation. Them. Nami, take the king back. By the way, let Perona and the others come. He frowned. From observation Haki's perception, Qin Luo could feel that the 5 people who were chasing were not very weak. Qin Luo, are you sure it won't? Nami looked at the bleak heavenly king beside her with a hint of scruples. It's okay, it won't attack without my order. Looking at the king beside him, Qin Luo's face was calm, so that Nami didn't need to worry. All right then, Nami nodded, taking the king, and was about to leave. By the way, don't disturb anyone, put it in Caesar's laboratory first. Somewhat worried, Qin Luo finally warned him, not wanting to disturb others. Got it. Nodding solemnly, Nami understood what Qin Luo meant. Crack. Suddenly, Nami disappeared into the sky. Chapter 390 In this way, Qin Luo and Sun Wukong stood on the Suzaku, and not long after, from far to near, 5 figures appeared out of thin air in front of Qin Luo and Sun Wukong. The strong wind and waves rolled up the sea under everyone's feet, and the breath was a little depressed. Half squinting, Chinluo looked at the 5 old guys and didn't say a word. Maybe strictly speaking, the CPO is the youngest among the 5 old guys. First Emperor. Led, Gorosei. 5 elders looked around Chinluo and Sun Wukong, and found that there was no heavenly king. Involuntarily, a sword energy emanated from his body. Hand over the heavenly king, spare you from dying. Gush. Gorosei. 5 elders aloof, looking at Chinluo contemptuously, as if they were ordering Chinluo. His eyes gradually cooled down. Chinluo was carrying one hand on his back, not even interested in answering. Sign up. Chinluo didn't speak, but Sun Wukong did. Seeing that, he didn't take these 5 people seriously. HMPH, a group of rebels. This is Lord Gorosei. 5 elders. These 3 are the powers of the 3 major families of the world nobles. Hephaestus. Dionysus. Near Atlas. It's best to hand over the king, otherwise, destroy the first emperor pirates. Only the CPO with the lowest status among the 5 answered such an introduction. With a condensed gaze, Chinluo looked at the 4 old guys. Thought they were all CPOs, but unexpectedly, they were all big fish. Gorosei. 5 elders, the 3 Tenryubito family leaders alone made Chinluo understand something. As he expected, Tenryubito was not as unbearable and arrogant as it seemed, and now it is more confirmed, because the auras of these 3 Tenryubito rulers were no weaker than those of the ordinary 5 emperors. Although I don't know what power the world government has, it is definitely not simple at present. But it's not without good news, at least now that the world government's Gorosei, 5 elders and Tenryubito are in power personally, which means that the world government can no longer provide any high-end combat power. What Chinluo didn't know was that the world government only needed that person to be there, then the world government was still the controller of the world. What a big tone. Who said that? The old lady hacked him to death with a sword. A more arrogant voice came, and a sonic boom occurred. Perona and Kuzan stood on Prometheus's body and appeared in front of everyone. And next to Perona, Kuzan yawned, sleepy eyes, not in good spirits. Snack. Also at this moment, there was a flash of thunder, and Nami's body slowly condensed. Why the 2 of you? Vivi was stunned. Although Nami informed Maine, she didn't expect that it was Perona and Kuzan who came. Don't mention it. Those guys only had 5 people and they didn't have any interest at all. Now they are in Going City. I slept right and was called up by Maine. Speaking of which, Kuzan, who was originally sleepy, vented his dissatisfaction on the spot. Quote. Nami's mouth twitched. Don't talk too much. Who are these old guys who are about to go into the coffin? Hack them to death early. It's a waste of time. Unhappy, Perona looked at Gorosei, 5 elders and the others like a dead man. Gorosei, 5 elders. Finally, Kuzan glanced at the other side and found that Gorosei, 5 elders were also there. Goes, one is the Gorosei, 5 elders, one is the CPO, and the other 3 are the heads of the Tenryubito family, whose names I forgot. Sun Wukong snorted coldly and explained a little. Who cares who it is? Waste Lao Su's time and go to hell. The one with the knife is handed over to me. The swordsman's intuition tells Perona that the Gorosei, 5 elders, with the knife at his waist, are his food. Hurry up, pick one of them to play with. Ha! He stretched out his hand and yawned again. Kuzan shook his head. Before he knew it, he seemed to have become more and more corrupt since joining the first Emperor Pirates. This is not good news. That dead old man, I want it, disappeared out of thin air, leaving only a cold voice from Sun Wukong. Too arrogant. On the opposite side, the Gorosei, 5 elders were all blushing and furious. Hundreds of years ago, which of them was not a top powerhouse? Even if they haven't done it for a long time, it doesn't mean that they can be small at will. Look at them. The first Emperor, CGAC, pirates, it's time to disappear. The swords were drawn, the 2 sides said nothing, all of them were arrogant and arrogant, how could they bow their heads? They each picked their opponents, and then disappeared like a goddess scattered flowers. Ah, what am I going to do? In the whole sky, Prometheus was left, turned into a hand, scratched his head, and Prometheus randomly found a direction and flew over. The streamer was wanton, like turning the river into the sea. The two figures, fisted to the flesh, made the entire sea bombard continuously. The whole body was burning with fiery flames. Qinluo's eyes were cold. Looking at the old man in front of him, the corner of his mouth rose. From the conversation just now, Qinluo probably guessed the old man's true identity. He was one of the 20 kings who established the world government 800 years ago. He seems to be called Hephaestus. Just fighting a few moves confirmed Qinluo's guess that this old guy's strength is not weak. Compared to the other Tenryubido rumored in the sea, it is not on a level at all. With a kick out, sparks appeared. Hephaestus frowned, his hands stopped in front of him, and with a huge force, he flew out directly. The name is well deserved, worthy of being the first emperor. Standing in the air, under the feet of the two of them, there was an isolated island, which was not very large. At this moment, Hephaestus was looking at Qinluo with fear. Without answering, Qinluo stepped out, like ripples, radiating arcs, and instantly appeared in front of Hephaestus. The fist of the sandbag surrounded the burning flame, making the entire space tremble. Bang! The wind was blowing, and Hephaestus was abruptly blown up, which made Qinluo frown. Suddenly, there was wind on his back. Qinluo didn't turn his head, and kicked out with one kick. With the collision of flesh and blood, a shock wave spread instantly. Turning around, Qinluo looked at Hephaestus, who was safe and sound, with a flash of surprise in his eyes. Whoosh, whoosh. Gradually separated, in Qinluo's eyes, Hephaestus has changed from 1 to 2, 2 to 4, and it has been increasing in multiples. In just a short time, at least 100 Hephaestus led. It was hard to tell people apart, and Qinluo was densely surrounded. The most important thing is that these changing Hephaestus breaths are not blind, but powerful. First Emperor, this is the power of the clone fruit. Every figure has half of my power. I see how you can escape from the palm of this old man. True or false, just like the real, more than 100 Hephaestus, looking at Qinluo with the victory in hand. Looking back and forth, Qinluo's eyes did not fluctuate, because for him, no matter how many people, they were just cannon fodder. As far as the top powerhouses are concerned, quantity is no longer the basis for determining victory or defeat. Unless each quantity is extremely strong, it is just cannon fodder. Hephaestus himself may be very powerful, with the power of 5 emperors, but his clone is only half, which may be troublesome for others, but for Qinluo, it is just an unknown. Chapter 381-. Kill him. With a wave of one hand, countless Hephaestus swarmed in all directions, and the surrounding momentum had a strong impact. The movement remained unchanged. Qinluo's eyes were cold, but Vivi raised his hand, the whole sky changed, and the tips of the weapons began to show their fangs. Hey! Endless, like a torrent, all kinds of swords, spears, swords and halberds are strangling towards Hephaestus, and the most surprising thing is that these clones of Hephaestus have independent fighting consciousness, know how to avoid and defend. For a time, apart from a few smashes, other clones actually suppressed Qinluo's attack. Turning to the side, Qinluo's fingertips turned red, and a ray of flame pierced through the flying clone, turning it into a shredded shred. At the very center, countless swords, spears, swords and halberds surrounded Qinluo, like a meat grinder, slaughtering the surrounding clones. Instead, it gradually increased. The cannon fodder tactic was used to the extreme by Hephaestus, and it was not impossible for the ants to kill the elephant. It's really troublesome. Gradually, Qinluo became a little impatient. Vivi squatted down, his hands were wrapped around the flames, and with a sudden rotation, a storm of flames soared into the sky, instantly connecting the heavens and the earth. Burning feather, burning heaven. The sea roared, endlessly, a firestorm began to devour the clone unscrupulously, and it was emptied in the blink of an eye. The sky shaking might, constantly colliding. In mid-air, there were more than a dozen clones standing around Hephaestus, looking at Qinluo angrily. HMPH, First Emperor, you're just wasting your time. With a snap of his fingers, it can be seen with the naked eye that the previously destroyed clone has skyrocketed again. The eyes began to burn with flames, a will of the sky collapsed, and the radiation without dead ends passed, and the entire sky flashed with thunder and lightning in an instant. I found it. All around, Qin felt a surge of anger from the crowd. There is no doubt that only Hephaestus himself has emotions. As for the clone, it is like a puppet, without the slightest emotional swings. Looking at Hephaestus naked, Qin sneered, and in his body, 2 shadows of vermilion birds stepped out. Disappeared in an instant, Qin rushed towards Hephaestus himself, and those clones were involved in the divine transformation. A barbed spear flew by, and in the crowd, Hephaestus was sweating profusely. Because of that huge will, it reminded him of a person. No, impossible, how can you have the same supreme will as Lord Yimu? Hephaestus was frightened with a slight trembling all over his body. Bloodstains appeared, and in an emergency, Hephaestus came back to his senses, dodged the barbed spear dangerously, and took a step back in horror. Hephaestus' actions made Qin frown deeply. He was arrogant to himself a moment ago, but now he has become like this old guy is afraid of himself. Conqueror, the landslides and fissures rushed, and they surrounded Hephaestus in an instant. Teeth chattering, Hephaestus' face was horrified, his mind was full of that figure, exactly the same, except for some differences in breath and unclear face. This man is Lord I Am. Abnormal, extreme difference, Hephaestus lost his mind. It does not mean Qin will be lost. So he found an opportunity, punched Hephaestus in the stomach, accompanied by a shock wave that shattered the black cloud. Hephaestus too was hunched over, his face twisted, and he kept vomiting blood. Holding Hephaestus with one hand, Qin had endless doubts in his heart. Originally, according to the previous situation, he would kill him directly, but now, Qin did not do anything. Ah! Screaming in pain, Qin cut off Hephaestus' limbs just in case, and then observation hockey swept away and left the place directly. To be honest, this Tenryubito is very powerful, but his own strength is only the level of the ordinary 5 emperors. These old guys are not as terrifying as they imagined, let alone facing Qin. On the other side, the whole sea has been frozen, and countless cold air is blowing towards the face. On the ice field, Kuzan looked at the Ming Atlas opposite him, his face impatient, because the other party kept talking. Kuzan, you actually betrayed Marine. It's too late to regret now. Before starting the Imperial Pirates, I will restore your identity as Admiral. Even if you become Marine, Marshal, it's not impossible. I, Atlas, have that ability. Chattering, from the scolding at the beginning to the current solicitation, Atlas Ming wanted to psychologically break down Kuzan's resistance. After all, the former Marine's top combat power is not just talking about it. When fighting, he is not necessarily this person's opponent. For this reason, Ming Atlas has adopted roundabout tactics. Enough said. Kuzan's face was not very good looking, he tilted his head slightly, and looked at the old man badly. Although he is usually lazy, it does not mean that he is stupid. I am Atlas, I will do what I say. As long as you attack the First Emperor pirates with your backhand, I will make you Marshal Marine. Because with the addition of the Gorosei, 5 elders, among the 10 remaining Tenryubito families, he still has a certain right to speak. As long as he rebels against Kuzan, or even conquers it, then your family will rise to the next level. I don't want to talk nonsense at all. Now Kuzan, he wants to start everything. At this moment, he just wants to end the battle as soon as possible, then go back to his own nest and take a good nap. The icy cold air, like a white fog, rose into the sky one after another, causing the surrounding air to freeze. Probing the hand, an ice spear condensed, and threw it directly to Atlas. The violent atmosphere produced a sonic boom, making Atlas' face instantly gloomy. I'm obsessed. Kuzan's shot undoubtedly shattered the fantasy of Atlas. On the spot, Silently, a strange wave of radiation radiated. With Atlas as the center, the entire frozen sea began to radiate. Black and red, dissolved. Standing up with one hand, a black-red flowing liquid spurted out, covering the ice sphere on the spot. Between the electric light and flint, the ice sphere turned black and red, as if it encountered some pollution, and slowly fell to the ground. Humph! He sneered again and again, and the murderous intent flashed in Atlas' eyes, and disappeared directly in place, rushing towards Kuzan. 0. Bang! Covered with ice, Kuzan's right fist was like a stone pillar, and he slammed with Atlas. It seems that the two are evenly matched, but Kuzan's expression is full of solemnity. With a flick of his hand, the ice wrapped around his hand had turned black and red, and kept bubbling with poisonous bubbles, turning it into a liquid. If Kuzan hadn't thrown it off in time, it would probably have corroded his arm. The old man is a contaminant who ate the special type devil fruit and polluted the fruit. You'd better not be touched by me, otherwise, you will become liquid. Shaking hands, the black and red liquid flowed in the hands of Atlas, exuding a breath of corrosion, venom, and erosion. Special Department, as the name suggests, is a variant of Paramesha, with the elementalization of Logia, and most importantly, the contaminated fruit also contains powers such as venom, miasma, disease, etc., which is simply a natural disaster type ability. Think about it, if Atlas wants to destroy a kingdom, and only needs to pollute the kingdom's water sources, air and other necessary things to survive, then the last outbreak is the plague, which is simply the natural disaster ability to wipe out human nature on a large scale. Rather than polluting the fruit, it is better to say that it is the fruit of plague and virus, because the power contained in the devil fruit of Atlas is too much. If you develop an extension ability at will, you can become the top powerhouse. It can be seen that all kinds of poisonous gases have begun to emerge from the frozen sea of Kuzan, causing some changes in the air. Vivi frowned, a little unhappy. The temperature of Kuzan's body began to plummet, and it radiated instantly. Whether it was the air or the ground, everything was in a world of ice. 2. Chapter 382 Boss Kuzan, I'm here to help you. Suddenly, the sky was unbearably hot, and Prometheus was bubbling with magma, and flames were burning around his body, like a small sun, causing the entire frozen sea to begin to melt. Since eating magma fruit, Prometheus's combat power has soared, and now he is also a strong man, and with the soaring strength, he has begun to become more and more arrogant, often in Napiran and Zeus's show off in front of you. Little poo. Up, Kuzan looked at Prometheus with his mouth puffed up and his body getting bigger and bigger, showing a smile. For things like germs and poisonous gas, flames are undoubtedly the most suitable. Damn old man, eat me a meteor shower. Boom, boom. It fell into the sky, densely packed, the whole sky was red, and countless magma fireballs flew straight down, as if like a meteorite, it drowned toward the underworld Atlas. Vivi's face was moved, even the lowest magma, the temperature is not low, now like a meteor fire, the sky is overwhelming, and the whole face of Atlas is heavy, because his ability is to be caught by flames and magma. The temperature inside is restrained. The ice chips splashed, the entire ice sheet vibrated, and there were countless potholes large and small, exuding scorching high temperature, causing the seawater to boil, evaporating a thick invisible mist. Playing happily, Prometheus is like a volcano, spewing out countless fireballs of magma, bombarding indiscriminately above the head of Atlas. On the other hand, Kuzan folded his hands on his shoulders, too lazy to reach out, yawning in his mouth. Finally, the carpet bombing lasted for a full 10 minutes. Prometheus stuck his tongue out, smoking from time to time, and gasping for breath. See if you die. Looking at the haze below, Prometheus spat fiercely. For a time, the entire venue was silent, and Prometheus flew back and forth in the air, trying to make sure that the other party was dead or not. Kuzan, who was yawning originally, suddenly narrowed his eyes and shouted, "Xiaopu, be careful." After speaking, without waiting for Prometheus to react, Kuzan disappeared directly in place, and the entire ice surface cracked. The smog broke through, and an embarrassed figure, covered in injuries, suddenly rushed towards Prometheus. The strong murderous intent made Prometheus go numb. Go to hell. With some degree of damage, Atlas looked at Prometheus brutally. His right hand was black to the extreme, like a stinky ditch, slamming towards Prometheus. The danger, the crisis of death, shocked Prometheus, and for a while, he did not react. Super Ice Age. The thick cold air rose up, Kuzan came, and slammed his hands towards the underworld Atlas. In an instant, the ice was covered, and the entire scene, including Prometheus, was turned into an ice sculpture. VV's face was pale, and he didn't even think about it. Kuzan took Prometheus directly and left the air, leaving only an iceberg standing. At the top, Atlas maintained the attack and remained motionless. Z. After Kuzan left with Prometheus, the whole iceberg melted, and Atlas was bruised all over, with cold breath coming out of his mouth, looking at Kuzan in horror. If he hadn't been prepared earlier, he might have been died. With one hand, the ice shattered, and Prometheus exposed his body. But at this moment, Prometheus was trembling in his mouth. It's so cold, so cold. Idiot, you are a fire. With black lines all over his head, Kuzan felt a headache when he looked at this idiot whose IQ was not online. Yes, I am a fire, not afraid of cold. Prometheus looked at Kuzan, as if asking. Gudong, Gudong. The magma began to bubble up, but in the blink of an eye, the temperature rose, and Prometheus returned to normal. Damn. The ice was shattered, and Atlas was blue and purple, and there were traces of frostbite everywhere. He looked up at the noise of the person on the opposite side, and couldn't help but get angry. Because the other party is just playing, and he is undoubtedly despising himself. However, his ability, whether it is fire or ice, has been restrained. Judging from the current situation, his situation is not very good. And just when the two sides were about to continue their efforts, the sky, the atmosphere roared, and a long rainbow stood above everyone in the blink of an eye. Black hair fluttered, Chin-Luo was holding the half-dead Hephaestus, a pair of breathtaking pupils, and stared at Atlas. Hephaestus. On the ground, Ming Atlas looked at Hephaestus in Chin-Luo's hands, whose limbs were strangely bent. His face changed greatly. He did not expect that Hephaestus was defeated by the first emperor so quickly. Boss. Prometheus looked at Chin-Luo with some admiration. Because of the battle on the spot, it is estimated that the boss battle will end the fastest. Kuzan didn't say anything, just put away the fog that surrounded him, and yawned again. You too, can you have snacks in battle? Hephaestus in his hand towards Prometheus, Chin-Luo looked at Kuzan and snorted slightly. The opponent's ability is too strong, I can't beat it, you can do it yourself. Kuzan also walked to Prometheus, watched Hephaestus being caught by Prometheus, patted his forehead, ignoring Chin-Luo's expression, and lay directly on Prometheus's back. Little Pooh, fly high, don't be affected, I'll take a nap, and call me when the battle is over. Over, Kuzan patted Prometheus, then bubbled from the tip of his nose, and fell asleep in the blink of an eye. Oh! Scratching his head, Prometheus's body grew a little bigger, and the chains of flames wrapped Hephaestus tightly, and Kuzan was lying not far away. Looking at Kuzan's lazy guy, Chin-Luo was too lazy to say anything. What does it mean to beat him? It's not serious at all. Chin-Luo also discovered a problem recently, that is, Kuzan is more lazy than before. He either sleeps all day, or hangs out in the First Emperor Pirates, so life should be more nourishing. How moisturizing. The figure descended, Chin-Luo looked at Atlas, and there was a flash of coldness in his eyes. First Emperor. The whole body was tense, and Atlas' expression was a little dignified, because he knew Hephaestus' ability. Even if he couldn't beat the fruit of the clone, he could easily escape, but now, not only was the First Emperor interrupted, his limbs also got caught. This shows that the First Emperor is far more powerful than he knows. Chin-Luo didn't bother to answer Ming Atlas's question, just stretched out his finger, the flames condensed, producing a high concentration of temperature, and shot at Ming Atlas. Disappeared. Atlas did not hard connect. Just watching the ripples in the atmosphere, he knew the temperature and penetrating power of this ray. Compared with the previous cloudy, the flames on both sides were simply not on the same level. Chapter 393 _ Captain, that old man will pollute and be afraid of fire. Not far away, in the sky, Prometheus roared, sticking out his tongue and licking his mouth. Squinting, listening to Prometheus' words, flames began to burn in circles around Qin Luo's body. In an instant, the entire frozen sea began to melt and turned into mist. As soon as he stepped out, Qin Luo appeared directly in front of Ming Atlas and swept past. The terrifying sonic boom and the boiling temperature made Atlas pale, and his entire body began to melt. The interception with both hands did not play any role at all. It turned into a streamer directly, moved a gully across the ice surface, and lay on the ground with a mouthful of blood. Following closely, Qin Luo condensed into a body, a halo. Cheng Hong disappeared behind him, and just appeared next to Ming Atlas, raised his right foot, the flame compressed, and stepped on it violently. Boom! The ground shook and the mountains shook, a dull explosion, countless cracks tore apart, the entire ice field collapsed completely, and Atlas bent his upper body, and the copper bell-sized eyes seemed to pop out of their sockets, full of hideousness. The sea gushed out, completely submerging Ming Atlas. Qin Luo frowned, bent over and directly grabbed 26 Ming Atlas, and then accompanied by 4 screams, Ming Atlas entered Hefi in the footsteps of Stows. The limbs were interrupted and twisted in a strange way. Just 2 short strokes, the so-called Tenryubito was crippled by Qin Luo. Among them, the ability to restrain is too strong. In all aspects, these so-called Tenryubito rulers are only the level of ordinary emperors. Of course, if you encounter someone with other abilities, the situation will not be like this. For Qin Luo, it is very weak, but for others, these people are all top experts, but the opponents they encounter are different, and the results are different. The first Emperor Pirates. Suddenly, a sword light crossed the sky, setting off a huge hurricane, making the entire bustling street instantly silent. Immediately following, an unparalleled deep cold breath, like sharp swords, hovered over everyone's heads. What's the matter? Someone swallowed their saliva and looked at the severed white cloud above the first Emperor Pirates, and a trace of fear flashed in their eyes. Sword chi. Some strong people frowned, because what was suppressed in their hearts was the boundless and sharp sword energy, which made their scalps numb. Sure enough, in the next instant, 2 figures were suspended in the sky above the first Emperor Pirates, surrounded by endless sword lights intertwined. That's Lord Perona. There was adoration, pointing at one of them, with stars in his eyes. It turned out that without knowing it, the battle between Perona and Guido Garose, 5 elders appeared in the first Emperor Pirates. Sword God. Ambulite, Perona's pupils have turned into sword pupils, and the sword energy fluttering around is even more fierce than before. On the opposite side, the same is true for Guido Garose, 5 elders, the aura emanating from his body is not much weaker than Perona. Apparently both of them have surpassed Dezhenhao and reached a new realm, Sword God. I didn't expect that in this world, someone has reached the Sword God realm. Garose, 5 elders had a gloomy face, and the sword glow in his hand kept wandering. Finally met a good swordsman. His tone was excited, and Perona's sword pupils were full of excitement. Today, she has to fight once and use all her strength. 5 fingers clasped together, the atmosphere was whining, no one knew how long Perona held back, how rare it was to meet a relatively equal opponent who was also a swordsman, the chance of that was 1 in 10 million. Maybe there are many swordsmen and great swordsmen in the sea, but the sword god is unique. Without hesitation, the chance of becoming a sword god is even less than that of the conqueror owner. Perona's dream is to split the sea with one sword and cut off the continent with one sword. There is nothing that can't be solved with one sword. Although Perona has this power now, it is far from what she wanted. She desperately wants to fight with fellow swordsmen in order to perfect his swordsmanship. But looking at the whole sea, there are only two people who can make him excited, that is Hawkeye and Kushiro, and now, another one is to be added. It's long been known that there is a sword god in the Gorosei, 5 elders, you know how much I want to hack you to death. Trembling all over, a beam of light from the sky-piercing sword chi burst out of Corona's body, connecting the heavens and the earth one after another. Central City, the center of the Imperial City, Maine is dealing with government affairs and is not in a good mood. Outside, there began to be a sound of collision, causing the entire Imperial City to vibrate. Miss Maine, Corona's battle with the enemy has already brought losses to the First Emperor pirates. I request to be dispatched. Fujitora, who had been removed from the command of the escort, walked into the hall with a gloomy face, very ugly. Because of the battle between Corona and Onito Gorosei, 5 elders, it has seriously affected the First Emperor pirates. For this reason, some buildings have been damaged and many ordinary residents have been affected. This is something Fujitora is unwilling to tolerate. Didn't you say that the battle was in the waters of the First Emperor pirates? Why did you appear in the First Emperor pirates? Because of the reason that Nami came back before. They all knew that there were 5 world government powerhouses in the waters of the First Emperor pirates, and Kuzan, Corona and others went to support for this. In the end, I didn't expect that it didn't take long for the battle circle to appear in the First Emperor pirates. Is this still worth it? With the destructive power of Corona and the others, with a single blow, wouldn't the First Emperor pirates be completely devastated? You bastard, Corona, doesn't he know how to move the circle to another place? Maine and Fujitora both walked outside the palace. And just right, outside the palace, a lot of people have gathered here. That idiot Corona, this didn't hit. Left. Oh, I missed it again, I didn't see it, that old man is very powerful. Sitting on a chair with all kinds of snacks in front of him, Taizolo and the others were nibbling on melon seeds, watching the sword light disappearing in the sky, and clapping their hands and applauding. I press 100,000 Bailey, the fight will be over in 10 minutes. I'm pressing 1,000,000, that old guy seems to be able to hold on for a while, 20 minutes. Eat melon seeds, yo, gambling, all watching a play, very leisurely. No one knew that the redhead who came back not long ago was drinking open-air coffee with his companions on Fishman Street, looking up at the battle in the sky, and there was an imperceptible flash in his eyes. Behind her, Maine's face was dark, and her eyes kept beating. A few idiots, still in the mood to watch the play, don't you see that many buildings have been lost below? Maine looked embarrassed and glared at Tessero a few people angrily. In this case, the battle should be ended as soon as possible, otherwise the loss will still be the First Emperor pirates. If he could do it, the old man would have died long ago. Everyone rolled their eyes. Corona won't let us intervene. It seems that she heard Maine's complaint. Corona turned on the ghost sword god mode, and the magic sword in her hand flowed wildly, and the ghosts of Gorosei, 5 elders gradually fell into the disadvantage until they died. Immediately afterwards, everyone came to the discussion hall, because Maine had to explain some things. With the defeat of Gush Gorosei, 5 elders, in the entire battle circle, only the battle between Sun Wukong and Nami is left, but as time goes by, the battle between the two sides has also entered a fierce battle. Chapter 394 Boom. In the northern waters of the First Emperor pirates, there are some islands and reefs, and an invisible torrent suddenly appeared in the sky, pushing the entire cloud layer, like a spiral strangulation, clearing a piece. With the sound of mirror-like shattering, a figure stepped out of the space, hair disheveled and blood spitting out of his mouth. With cold eyes, Sun Wukong stabilized his body, and after spitting out a mouthful of blood stasis, he looked at the old man with a sullen face and a collapsed chest. Dionysus, the ruler of one of the 5 Tenryubito families, Logia air fruit ability, can be said to be extremely powerful. If he didn't notice it for a while, even Sun Wukong suffered a big loss. Damn. With blood dripping from his mouth, Dionysus looked at Sun Wukong with a deep cold, clenching his hands tightly, and blue veins spread to his arms. Old man, you will die miserably. The cold eyes began to appear gloomy, Sun Wukong's hands were vertical, and a trace of fluorescent golden hoop rods circulated, affecting the changes around him. HMPH, today I will kill you, monkey. The words were fierce, and there was a vibration around Dionysus. Silently, the air swept away instantly, turned into a vortex, and appeared in his hand. Bang! In the direction of Sun Wukong, Dionysus punched out, the entire atmosphere shattered, and a huge shock wave, like an artillery explosion, swept the sky. Stepping out, Sun Wukong disappeared in place and appeared in front of Dionysus out of thin air. Holding his breath in his mouth, the golden hoop swept out, and aimed at Dionysus with murderous intent. Battle charge. Boom, boom. It is close at hand. If the nuclear bomb explodes and the whole sky loses its color, the power that erupts directly forms the origin. Iron block air barrier, Dionysus. With a change in his eyes, Dionysus didn't notice it for a while, but he suffered a lot of losses. For this reason, he made an emergency defense. The air in front of him was extremely compressed. Together with the iron block and armament, it formed a rippling wave. Ripple, tightly guarding his chest. The deafening roar rushed to the clouds, and the sea under the two of them stomped directly, forming an abyss. Almost at the same time, it flew out backwards, generating an impact, and then disappeared. The next moment, a stick and a punch banged, the atmosphere whimpered, and the vibration kept shaking. The white-hot battle allowed the two to fully display their strengths. The most surprising thing is that in a short period of time, Dionysus actually resisted Sun Wukong's golden hoop. It can be seen that Dionysus himself is also a strong fighting technique. Coupled with the air fruit, for a while, Sun Wukong could not do anything, and the two can be said to be evenly divided. However, the speed of Sun Wukong is beyond the reach of Dionysus after all. If it is just disappearing, it is fine, but every time Sun Wukong disappears by teleporting, observation hockey is useless, so Dionysus ate a lot during the battle. Dark loss. Compared with the situation where Sun Wukong and Dionysus have been fighting for a long time, the final battle is about to be resolved. Boom. On the horizon, the thunder of the sky is constantly whistling, and even the air is filled with a fiery breath. With a horizontal kick, the CPO vomited blood and flew out with the thunderbolt. It turned into an electric light and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Nami appeared behind the CPO and slammed it out again, and the whole space was shaking. An emergency, the CPO used a shave, covered in smoke, and disappeared in place. Electric blazing blade. Compressed and bounced between the hands, a slightly dark thunder, as if surpassing the sonic boom, went straight to the CPO who had just condensed into a body. The blood exploded, and with a muffled sound, the CPO's left shoulder was scorched, forming a pair of piercings. Do you still want to run? Like a cat playing a mouse, Nami looked at this fighting technique powerhouse with contempt, her eyes full of drama. Cough, cough. Extremely fearful, the CPO's mask has long since disappeared, leaving behind a pale face. At this moment, the CPO is staring at Nami tightly, his whole body tensed. This woman is far stronger than everyone he has met. Even if his armament has reached its peak, he will still be paralyzed and damaged under the thunder of the opponent. Himself, not his opponent. From the battle to the present, the CPO has understood the gap between the two sides. Buzz. The electric light was free, and a high-concentration compression spear appeared in Nami's hand, and through it, showing a stern smile at the CPO. Dionysus, shoo. He didn't know how to disappear at all, but his eyes lit up, and then the spear was in front of him. However, being a CPO is not easy. For this reason, the difference is 1,000 miles away. The CPO's face overflowed with blood, and a roar sounded in his ears, successfully avoiding Nami's projection. But the next moment, the CPO's hair exploded and his pupils shrank into pinholes, because Nami was standing in front of him with his hands open, and a terrifying power was being released. The thunder is cut off. The huge repulsive force spread from Nami's body like a heavy blow. The CPO's face was covered in blood, turned into a meteorite, and smashed directly on the sea. Discharge. With a wicked laugh, Nami was suspended on the sea, the blue thunderbolt in her hand was free, and she slammed into the place where the CPO had just disappeared. Instant, the entire sea turned, money obtained, and countless electric lights burst into the air, forming a blue sea. Burning smell, evaporating smell, a foul smell, rising on the sea surface. As far as the eye can see, all kinds of marine life, floating on the sea surface, the belly is white and black. With Nami at the center, hundreds of thousands of meters in radius, it turned into hell, and all that caught the eye were corpses. Looking down, Nami closed her eyes, and the next moment she appeared next to a medium-sized sea king who was foaming at the mouth. Here, the CPO was dying, twitching all over. It's really boring. Of the 5, you must be the weakest. The fingertips thundered away, and Nami looked at the CPO with contempt. The next second, with the explosion of her head, a headless corpse floated on the sea. Killing the CPO, Nami was a little disappointed, and then she looked in one direction, turned into an electric light, and disappeared. Chapter 385 The huge shock wave traversed the entire sky, causing the originally condensed black cloud to project a ray of sunlight as if it had broken a hole. Rapid breathing, fluctuations, whether it is Sun Wukong or Dionysus, they are a little too exhausted at the moment, and the expressions of the two are a little flushed. Gloomy like rain, Dionysus's chest sank a little more than before, and even a rib could be seen piercing the skin, and the entire face was blue and purple, full of blood. The basic use of his abilities has no effect on the man in front of him at all, which makes him a little sad. Every time this guy couldn't hold his breath, he would disappear. When he appeared in the next second, he would be alive and well, draining the air himself, except for wasting his physical strength. If it were someone else, he only needed to pump out the air, and it would not take long for him to fall into shock due to lack of oxygen, but the monkey in front of him was really weird. Speed is like teleportation, and observation hockey has no effect. The key is the fighting technique, which is very powerful. If it continues like this, you may fail. Frowning, Dionysus analyzed, and after wiping the blood from the corners of his mouth, he took a deep breath. On the opposite side, Sun Wukong exhaled with a stick. In perception, it knows that everyone else has already solved the opponent, and he should be the last one. It can't be dragged on any longer, it's time to go all out. A wave of air pressure, ripples began to appear around Sun Wukong. From a distance, Sun Wukong seemed to be in the 9 heavens, shining with layers of fluorescence, and wearing a golden armor, even the sun could not cover it. Guardian spell. The powerful breath swept into the air, and Sun Wukong stepped out, as if from another time and space, with silver hair, silver eyes, and silver body. In an instant, Sun Wukong hit Dionysus and bombarded the past. So close, Dionysus could feel a powerful force coming, making him chill. Air transfer. In an emergency, Dionysus put away his mind, used his ability, and reacted with compressed air, causing his body to disappear in place like a teleportation. Air closed. Dionysus vomited blood and slapped Sun Wukong with both hands. The entire space was thick and thick like a swamp, limiting the speed of Sun Wukong. However, the unfavorable control has no effect on Sun Wukong. I saw Sun Wukong turned around without any hindrance, as if he had traveled through space, and appeared in front of Dionysus again. Mouthful of blood. 3 sticks. In an instant Wangwa, Dionysus' entire left arm was directly beaten into a zigzag shape by 3 sticks. Air shock. His eyes were split, and although he could not feel any pain, Dionysus knew that his left hand was abolished. On the spot, his right foot penetrated the air like a meteor, and slammed into Sun Wukong. However, Sun Wukong ignored Dionysus' attack, instead of retreating, he wanted to grab Dionysus' right hand. Go to hell. Seeing that Sun Wukong had no defense, Dionysus had a grim face, and the energy on his right foot became even more enormous. It didn't play any role. Like a wave of water, Dionysus' right foot directly penetrated Sun Wukong's chest, and a pair of wear came. But the horror is that Dionysus' right foot penetrated Monkey King's chest, but behind Monkey King, there is no Dionysus' right foot. As if Sun Wukong's chest is a black hole, engulfing all the attacks of Dionysus. Impossible. Dionysus roared, unable to believe everything in front of him, but Sun Wukong found an opportunity, gave up Dionysus' left hand, and grabbed Dionysus' right foot. The protective spell directly offsets Dionysus' attack. Crush. Abruptly reversed, Dionysus' right foot, from the knee, was like a meat grinder, constantly turning in circles, like a spinning top. In the nick of time, Dionysus became elementalized and escaped from Sun Wukong's side, but it didn't take long for Dionysus to clang and the elementalization was forcibly interrupted. Damn. Bending his hands and feet, Dionysus had a grim expression on his face. I'm going to kill you. Furious, Dionysus looked at his twisted hands and feet, and looked at Sun Wukong with a vicious look. His only right hand was compressing all his strength. Even if his body collapsed, he would kill the monkey. In an instant, the entire sky continued to produce a sensation, as if it collapsed, the air swept up and condensed to the apex. The air collapses. Crack, kick. The entire atmosphere was shattered, and a destructive aura of landslides overflowed, turning into an ancient beast, and biting at Sun Wukong. That power, there is no doubt that it can destroy everything, but Sun Wukong walked towards Dionysus as if he was walking. Ha ha, you're sure to die. Dionysus laughed. With his own move, no one could survive. He seemed to have seen Sun Wukong being blown to pieces. However, before he finished laughing, Dionysus seemed to be strangled by his neck, his eyes were about to break free, full of disbelief. Impossible, it's impossible. Roaring loudly, Dionysus couldn't believe it. He couldn't believe that the other party survived the air explosion without incident. Nothing is impossible. With a stern face, Sun Wukong looked at Dionysus like a dead man. You were obviously hit, why are you okay? Taking a step back, Dionysus's heart trembled. He clearly saw that Sun Wukong was swept by the storm, but now, everything has subverted his imagination, because Sun Wukong was not hurt in the slightest. Battle charge. Sun Wukong didn't have the mind to explain, so he directly used his ability and grabbed Dionysus. Electric, light and flint, Dionysus wanted to escape in elemental form, but was noticed by Sun Wukong. Want to run. Disdainful, Sun Wukong directly forcibly interrupted Dionysus' elementalization, and then, as if folded, made Dionysus' entire body form a dozen folded doors. Even standing was a problem. His hands and feet were out of control. At this moment, Dionysus seemed to have no body. Even if he had strength, he could not use it. Seizing Dionysus, the changes in Sun Wukong also returned to normal. Not long after Sun Wukong finished solving Dionysus, a thunder flashed across the sky, revealing Nami's light-hearted look. Yo, I thought you hadn't solved it before I came. He crossed his shoulders and looked at Dionysus, who was half dead and carried by Sun Wukong, and raised his eyebrows. Why are you still keeping it? Unmoved, Sun Wukong glanced at Nami, then turned his eyes to the other side, because a flaming cloud was quickly going. Chapter 396 Captain. The blink of an eye, Prometheus came to Sun Wukong and Nami with Qin Luo and Kuzan, as well as Hephaestus and Ming Atlas whose limbs were interrupted. Boss Nami, Boss Goku. His face was flushed. Prometheus can be said to shine this time, and even played a big role, provided that Kuzan didn't take it seriously. Why do you all keep alive? Nami was stunned, stepped on Prometheus, and looked at the two old guys with miserable images. Do you think you are like you? With these guys, we can learn a lot of information about the world government, and the ability of this old man is very good. Sun Wukong did not change his face, threw Dionysus in his hand beside the two old Hephaestus, and expressed his thoughts. As for Nami's opponent, he must be dead. You have misunderstood me. My opponent is as weak as a chicken, and he is not capable. I am too lazy to stay alive. Nami kicked Atlas, causing the latter's blood, red eyes. However, aren't these people too weak? I thought Gorosei, 5 elders and Tenryubito were so powerful. It turned out to be so weak, so disappointing. Sighing, then, Nami complained. Boss Nami, we are too strong, and the abilities of these two guys are very strange. Prometheus licked his lips and pointed to Hephaestus and Pluto Atlas. What abilities do these 3 weak chickens have? Nami pinched her chin and raised her foot, ignoring the angry stares of the 3 of Hephaestus, and stepped on it again. Paramesha clone fruit. Logia contaminated fruit. Logia air fruit. It's amazing, it turns out to be all-powerful abilities. The air fruit is a legend, and there is no record so far. I thought it didn't exist. Looking at Dionysus maliciously, Nami's eyes twitched. Forget it, it won't be long before it's ours anyway. He waved his hand, and Nami lost interest in the blink of an eye. If it wasn't for these 3 people, they would have died long ago. Let's go. These arrogant guys have delayed me for a long time. With a dull face, Chin Luo spoke up, ignoring the 3 Hephaestus who couldn't move under his feet. Yes, Captain. Prometheus turned into a flash of fire and disappeared directly into the sea, and it didn't take long for him to appear over Shuang Island. A few minutes later, in the main hall of the First Emperor Pirates, everyone gathered together. The Gorosei, 5 elders, who fought against Perona, were also captured. Nami, Goku, you put these old guys in jail and bring Caesar here. In the main hall, everyone looked at the ghost Gorosei, 5 elders, who had been cut into a stick in the center, and Hephaestus, whose limbs were tortuously tied to sea stone. Suddenly, Chin Luo spoke up. Got it. In the blink of an eye, Nami and Sun Wukong disappeared in place like carrying dead dogs. Is the red hair back? Chin Luo asked. I'm back, I'm drinking coffee at Fishman Street now. Main frowned, then hesitated. Just tell me if you have anything. Seeing that Ma Yin's face was a little unsightly, Chin Luo also frowned. Caesar's new research potion seems to have been stolen by the red hair, and I don't know what it is used for. And, according to the news, someone saw the red hair in Mariajoy. Main glared coldly and expressed her guesses. Since you are already suspicious, how are you going to prepare after the event? Chin Luo didn't ask why. He believed in Ma Yin. If she became suspicious, there would be follow-up arrangements. The Seastone machine surveillance bug invented by Caesar has already been monitored. As Chin Luo thought, Ma Yin had already started to monitor the red hair. In fact, since the red hair and the others came back, they have been monitored by Maine. This kind of surveillance was specially invented by Caesar. Its purpose is to isolate the observation hockey masters and the capable ones. The most important thing is that this surveillance insect has no life. It may be an ant, or a leaf, in short. All over Shuang Island. If Maine didn't say it now, maybe everyone would be buried in the dark, except Chin Luo. Understood. Chin Luo's face remained unchanged. He pondered, and his heart was filled with killing intent. If there was really a problem with the red hair, he would do it without hesitation. Captain, Maine, what do you mean? The other people looked confused. Looking at the previous conversation, it seemed that there was a problem with the red-haired pirates, which was worth it. At the same time, on Fishman Street, in the open-air coffee shop, the redhead looked up and looked at Thunder who was passing through the gap. His face sank. Do these old guys really think they are invincible? They ruined my plan. The faces are ugly. If I read it right, Nami and Sun Wukong are holding the old things that they think they are right. What's the matter? You look so ugly. The others also looked away from the sky, and Beckman couldn't help asking when he saw the red-haired face was ugly. Recall all the ships out there. Perhaps before long there's going to be a big war. With a serious face, the redhead stood up. Captain, could it be? Beckman's expression changed, and he pointed to the first emperor's central city. The plan has changed, it's time for a showdown. Clenching one hand, the redhead gnashed his teeth and looked at the direction of the first emperor prison, a little unwilling. If he had a choice, the red hair didn't want to save the four old guys, but when he thought of standing by and angering the adults in the Holy Land, he couldn't calm down. In the past, I also resisted, but I was pressed on the ground with a finger of the adult. If it wasn't for my father, maybe I would have died. 0. It can be said that the arrest of Gorosei, 5 elders and others completely shattered the redhead's plan and forced him to rescue him. Although he could stand by and watch the consequences, he could not bear the consequences, even if the probability was only half. He didn't dare to gamble either. After all, there were once 20 Tenryubito families, and there were only 10 left. It was not without experience. Therefore, the red hair had no choice but to hide, so he could only rescue the 4 old guys. In this way, they can only fight against the first emperor pirates. At this moment, the redhead has no choice, not even time to think. There is only one way to go. In the end, the war between the two sides is still going to happen, but it was delayed for a while, and no one expected this fuse, especially for the red hair. Chuangdao, underground prison. Nami and Sun Wukong appeared in Caesar's Research Institute with 4 Hephaestus. Boss Nami, is this the Gorosei, 5 elders? Wearing a white coat, Caesar was studying the Heavenly King. Seeing Nami and Sun Wukong carrying 4 half-dead old guys, they quickly took off the transparent gloves in their hands. Well, lock them up first, and then deprive them of their abilities after the secrets of the world government are squeezed out. Just throw it on the ground. And now the 4 old guys have their limbs twisted and turned, and they were stunned by Nami after they left the Sky City. So now the 4 of Hephaestus were lying on the ground in a coma like a dead dog. It's not so good. I thought how strong it was. After going back and forth, Caesar's eyes were full of disappointment. After all, the identities of these 4 people were not simple. I didn't expect that they would be killed so easily. If possible, Caesar would really like to give a bad review. 2. Chapter 397_. Tianwang, how's the research going? Missing Caesar's side, Nami looked at the Heavenly King standing upright, with that empty, machine-like expression, and she couldn't help looking at Caesar. As soon as the King of Heaven was involved, Caesar, who was originally full of disappointment, became excited on the spot. Do you know? This Heavenly King is a transformed robot, and the value in his body is quite large. Eyes glowing, if possible, Caesar really wants to study the king inside and out. Okay, the captain is still waiting. Sun Wukong interrupted Caesar's excitement, causing Caesar a burst of dissatisfaction. But at this moment, the entire underground world trembled, like an earthquake, the surrounding alloy walls collapsed, and countless gravel and dust fell. Countless red alarms began to sound, and all the researchers, little humans, etc., began to hide in the air raid shelter. What's the matter? Caesar looked facing the collapsed ceiling, his eyes widened. You know, this is just an alloy iron that is slightly worse than sea stone. How do you look like this? It is being torn apart. Warning, warning, enemy attack, enemy attack. Crack, knock. There was little smoke and dust, and the entire ground collapsed. When you climbed up and looked at it, you would find that the entire underground world was torn apart. In the endless dust, a ray of sunlight poured down. Caesar, be careful. In an emergency, Nami grabbed the king and Caesar and disappeared directly in place. A bullet, with a whistling sound, directly penetrated the alloy iron, revealing a lacquer black eye the size of a finger. Soaring into the sky, several people appeared on the ground, looking at the crowd standing around, their faces changed. Redhead. Standing in the air, Nami grabbed the king and Caesar, and looked at the red-haired people who were waiting on the edge of the hole, especially Usopp's smoking sniper rifle. Maid. I didn't expect that the King of Heaven was also caught by you. With sharp eyes, the redhead looked at the King of Heaven in Nami's hands, and his heart sank. He did not expect that, in addition to the 4 old guys, the King of Heaven was also in the hands of the first Emperor pirates. Another plan of my own was also destroyed. The redhead gritted his teeth. Captain, is it these 4 old fellows? At this time, a cadre jumped out of the pit, holding the 4 Hephaestus in his hands. Go ahead and leave before the first emperor arrives. The red hair pulled out the western sword, and the fierce sword energy swept the surroundings, instantly appeared in front of Nami, and stabbed with a sword. With her pupils shrunk, Nami could clearly feel the wailing of the space, grabbed the king, turned into lightning, and disappeared in place, but a bullet came in an instant, forcing Nami to stop. At the same time, Beckman, Lackey and others also rushed towards Sun Wukong and Caesar. Although they had many doubts in their hearts, the captain's order suppressed their doubts. In the City of the Sky, in the main hall, everyone is discussing, and all the problems are gradually becoming clear. But suddenly, in the towering gully of Maine, a phone bug sounded the alarm. The appearance of this phone bug made the originally calm Maine look serious on the spot. Captain, the redhead has shot at Winter Island. As soon as Ma Yin finished speaking, Qin Luo, who was sitting on the throne, had disappeared, leaving only a lingering sound in the hall. Each one does his job. Immediately afterwards, Perona, Kuzan, Fujitora and others also rushed out of the hall. Just when Maine was about to act, the phone bug on her body also rang. Boss Maine, the warship of the Red Hair Pirates, killed many of our companions, and is rushing towards the first Emperor pirates. The sound of artillery fire and screams came from the phone bug, which made Maine's face turn cold. It seems that my decision is right. Maine sneered. Immediately afterwards, Maine ordered one by one, and the entire first Emperor pirates swayed and began to prepare for battle. In the underground world, the situation is extremely unfavorable. Because of the need to protect the king, Nami is somewhat tied. Under the sniping of the Red Hair and Usopp, in just a short while, Nami feels the threat. And Sun Wukong, who is also suppressed by Beckman and others, had no chance to support Nami. As for Caesar, he was even more embarrassed and could only hold his head and run around. Redhead, you actually betrayed our contract. There was an emergency flash. Nami's face was full of coldness, the whole sky was covered with black clouds, and there were countless lightning strikes. He didn't speak, the red hair was terrifying at the moment, the western sword in his hand directly blocked Nami's back path, and at the same time, Usopp shot again, aiming at Nami's head. Looking for death, lightning flashes in an instant. The eyes are blue, and the powerful thunder power spreads from Nami, directly rebounding the attack of the red hair and Usopp, winning a short retreat distance. Slaying, combined swordsmanship. Falling to the ground, the huge wind and waves swept through, and the red hair knew that if it dragged on like this, not only would he not be able to save people, he might even be left behind. Conqueror, armament, fighting technique, all the power of the red hair poured out, as if spanning time, appearing in front of Nami in an instant. With a ferocious face, Nami stretched out her hand, endless thunder compression, electromagnetic power, stirring up the entire field. But at a critical moment, 3 consecutive gunshots made Nami's scalp numb. Samsung Renju. Choose one of the two. If you fight against the red hair, then you must withstand the attack of Usopp, but if you resist the attack of Usopp, then you must withstand the attack of the red hair, or the last way, give up the king. But just when Nami was having a hard time deciding, a figure, with Qinghong rippling behind her back, suddenly appeared in front of the red hair, a killing intent that made the whole sky pale. The flame erupted, and the dark-armed, condensed right hand, shone with dark and dazzling colors, giving people a feeling of a landslide. The long black hair fluttered, and what caught the red-haired eyes was a savage face, especially those eyes, which were shining with fire at the moment, full of destruction. Sparks splashed everywhere. Qin Luo clenched his fingers tightly, grabbed the red-haired western sword tightly, and slammed it out with one foot. The sky collapsed, and a big explosion occurred. Brows furrowed, red hair turned sideways, a ripple swayed, and the entire discolored sky was directly separated, revealing a broad avenue. However, before the attack was over, Chin-luo swept his right foot through and kicked the red-haired waist forcibly. The scalp was numb, the red hair twitched his hands, and he wanted to resist, but Chin-luo firmly grasped the western sword. With the appearance of Chin-luo, Nami directly ignored the red hair. The originally condensed railgun directly smashed Usopp's attack, and even went towards Usopp's body. The ground burst, and countless rubble turned upside down, leaving behind a mess all over the ground. At this time, Kuzan, Fujitora, Tessero and others also brought countless First Emperor troops to surround the entire island, and countless artillery fires extended from all directions. The two sides ended the battle and held each other up. Chapter 398 Seeing this, the red-haired complexion was extremely ugly. He knew that his credit was all down, and he was still not calm enough. Suspended in the air, Chin-luo looked down at the red-haired group, especially the old guys from Hephaestus who were rescued by the red-haired, making Chin-luo's eyes more and more cold. This guy really has something to hide. Say your last words. The awe-inspiring killing intent was not concealed in the slightest. Chin-luo looked at the red-haired pirates like a dead man and made up his mind. The two sides don't need any explanation anymore. From the moment the Red Start started, the previous agreement has been broken. What cooperation, what joining, what scruples, everything will turn into fly ash. Give me a face, let us go, I swear I will never violate the First Emperor pirates. Looking up, the red hair felt the threat all around, looked at Chin-luo seriously, without explanation, just a request. What kind of capital do you have? Let me give you face. He replied coldly, and flames began to emerge from Chin-luo's body. Just because I'm a member of the Lee Rock's family, you arrest these 4 people, it's like stabbing the sky. The First Emperor pirates can't bear the anger from Mariajoy. Black cloak fluttered, and the red-haired hockey looked at Chin-luo, not intending to hide his identity. You are Tenryubito. Squinting slightly, even if Chin-luo is not good at thinking, he can guess what the red hair means. Now, it was so obvious that the whole scene was silent. Whether it was Nami, Beckman and others, they all looked at the red hair in disbelief, a little unbelievable. That's right, the identity of the red-haired Tenryubito, even Beckman and others, does not know. Maybe Beckman guessed something, but he is not sure, until this moment. You don't know our energy at all. The reason why the First Emperor pirates still exist is that we don't want to do it, but if you kill these 4 people, then the First Emperor pirates will be wiped out. It's really eye-opening. The 5 emperors of the New World, a pirate, can actually be the self-righteous Tenryubito, the so-called creator. Redhead, you are really surprising. Naked irony, the red-haired setting at the moment has completely collapsed. Didn't you see those companions behind the red hair, all showing expressions of surprise, hesitation, and ignorance at the moment? Because at this moment, they seem to really recognize this captain who has come and gone with them. The impact, for them, is a bit huge. Now, the redhead couldn't explain to his companions, only after he left the Imperial Pirates, could he let his companions lose their misunderstanding, because he was different from other Tenryubito. First Emperor Chin-luo, if you want the First Emperor pirates to exist, as well as the lives of your subordinates, think about it carefully, let us go, and hand over the Heavenly King. Without any intention of joking, the red hair stared at Chin-luo, even though he didn't know what to do. After all, the man opposite was a lunatic, a madman. It's not a pity to die, kill me all. The redhead's brief silence and change of subject made Chin-luo almost laugh angrily. The red hair is already threatening, and even the King of Heaven will be taken away. If he dares to reach out to those he cares about, then he is ready to pay the price of death. Chin-luo didn't have the guts of the Prime Minister for punting a boat. Some were just chicken guts. On the spot, he was full of anger. Chin-luo's face was ruthless, and he directly issued the order to attack. Live and I'll explain everything, trust me. Qin Luo's rage, the red hair had long expected, but turned around, looked at the partner who once lived and died together, and said a heavy sentence. Following the words of the red hair, everyone who had some doubts showed a firm look and nodded solemnly. The situation collapsed in an instant, and the two sides fought directly. Falling down, Qin Luo went straight to the red hair. This time, he must kill this man, regardless of the consequences, he must die. The chaos of the riot broke out in an all-round way, and the entire First Emperor Pirates group was precarious. Chenghong rippling, Qin Luo appeared beside the red-haired, and with one kick, the whole ground rolled, accompanied by the explosion. The red-haired Western sword stopped in front of him, but the speed and strength were too strong. The red-haired directly could not resist. As a result, the Western sword slapped on the chest, turned into a streamer, and slammed into an iceberg. Beckman, who was closest to the red-haired man, changed his face and shot directly, attacking Qin Luo. But Qin Luo completely ignored it, because a figure appeared, resisting Beckman's attack with a punch, and said coldly, "I wanted to fight you for a long time." At the same moment, Nami crushed the sniper bullets from Usopp, Perona, Kuzan, Fujitora. Tessero also confronted the cadres of the red-haired pirates such as Lackey, and the whole scene completely collapsed. Just when the battle broke out on the island, the pirates of the First Emperor Pirates, the red-haired pirates, also began to return to the cage, strangling towards the First Emperor Pirates. For these jumping clowns, Main directly asked Supernova Luo, Kid and others to bring the First Emperor's army to kill them in an all-round way. The two antis have already torn their faces, and there is no need to pretend. For a time, the smoke of gunpowder spread to the sea area of the First Emperor Pirates. Because of the special transformation of the Emperor's battle, it broke out again. Similarly, wars are still taking place in the Four Seas and the Great Route, and the Revolutionary Army and the world government have always been at a standoff. For a time, in a chaotic era, no one could predict the outcome. Flickering and flickering, the originally clear sky was already covered by black clouds, and thunder flashed from time to time, making it deafening. A sword light swept away, separated the sea of clouds, and went straight to a flaming figure. At this moment, Qin Luo was engulfed in flames, making it difficult to see his face. He could only see London, a conqueror, suppressing the red hair, exuding panic. Clenching his fists, the bursting energy kept shaking. Qin Luo punched it, blasted out, the sky and the earth cracked, and it collided with the sword light. The explosion soared into the sky, sword light poured out from all around. Qin Luo took a step, a long rainbow ripple appeared in front of the red hair in an instant, and he kicked out. With a change of expression, Qin Luo's speed exceeded the expectations of the red hair. Feeling the power coming from the foot, the red hair exhausted all his strength and the western sword went down in one battle. The metal-like collision, compressed into air pressure, and brushed in a ring, the red hair couldn't bear it, and flew out directly. And Qin Luo was covered in flames, and a bloodstain appeared on his right foot, but it healed in the blink of an eye. Lightning flashed, the sky was black, covering the entire First Emperor Pirates. Bowing his head and overlooking the entire venue, Qin Luo frowned, because it was only a short battle. The First Emperor Pirates were greatly damaged. Must resolve the battle quickly. The flames burned, and two flame figures stepped out from Qin Luo's body, shining with endless rays of light. The shadow of the vermilion bird poured out. Qin Luo himself also stepped out once again, a heart-wrenching rainbow that lasted for a long time. Boom! Armed and covered in flames, a punch slammed on the western sword, spreading a violent hurricane. Almost at the same time, Qin Luo and red hair kicked out, but at this moment, two Suzaku shadows appeared, each holding a long sword. The spear stabbed the redhead. With a solemn expression, the sword flower danced. The red hair could only resist, but he forgot that the real enemy was Qin Luo himself. Chapter 399 In an instant, Qin Luo punched the red-haired stomach. On the spot, the red-haired bowed his body, his eyes jumped out of his sockets, his face twisted to the extreme, very white. In the mouth, there was a big mouthful of blood, and you could even see that a shock surged from the back of the red hair, piercing the sky. The shock of the body in an instant, even a strong man like Red Hair couldn't fight back for a while, but this moment when he couldn't fight back was enough to give Chin Luo time to completely make Red Hair lose his combat effectiveness. Holding the red-haired head in both hands, Chin Luo's eyes were fierce, and his knees kept colliding. The blood kept dripping from the 7 orifices, and the red-haired eyes were blurred. He knew that if this continued, he would definitely lose. Forcibly twisting his body, like a spring, his red-haired head slammed up and hit Chin Luo's chin all of a sudden, causing Chin Luo's attack to stop. Finding an opportunity, the red hair kicked out, while Chin Luo reached out and resisted, and with a dull bang, he opened the distance. But don't forget, there are 2 Suzaku shadows staring at them. Almost at the same time, the 2 streamers stabbed down. Shaking, it stabbed into his body. The fleeting battle was full of ferocity. A gleaming slash directly shattered the 2 Suzaku shadows, and the red-haired one was sonorous and took a few steps backwards. The spear was drawn, blood splattered, the red hair was panting and covered in blood. Cough, cough. The hand holding the western sword had already begun to tremble slightly, and the redhead looked at Chin Luo vigilantly, his heart sinking. The opposite side, Chin Luo Vivi raised his head, his chin was a little deviated, but when he stretched out his hand, it returned to its original position. Chin Luo was used to this kind of pain, so his face was calm as usual. Pump Kai, Puff Kai, diaresis. The flames burned again, and 2 shadows of Suzaku stepped out of Chin Luo's body, one left and one right, bringing great pressure to the red hair. Now, as long as you are not a fool, you can see that the red hair is not Chin Luo's opponent. Conqueror, the 2 have been fighting each other, but from the very beginning, the red hair has been suppressed. The most important thing is that the red hair is not a sword god, but a demigod. Maybe he has already contacted that field, but it was too late. Did not arrive. Perona, Kushiro, and Hawkeye, the redhead is not obsessed with kendo. He is a real swordsman. If kendo is Perona's main business, then red-haired kendo is a side business. The most important point is that the red hair is missing an arm, and after all, it is still difficult to fight with 4 hands. This battle is doomed from the beginning. The collapsed chest, Vivi ups and downs, a trace of pain flashed on the red-haired face, and the whole body exudes a bloody smell, which is extremely pungent. However, Chin Luo did not give the red hair a chance to breathe, and stepped out again, appeared in front of the red hair, and launched an attack. Immediately after that, 2 Suzaku shadows also attacked. 1 hit 3. As time went by, the red hair had more and more flaws. The meteor fell, setting off endless storms, and hills rose from the ground, forming the collapsed canyon. Cracks were torn apart and spread to the entire scene. In the center, the red-haired man was lying in the rubble, and the western sword in his hand was let go. In midair, Chin Luo was a little embarrassed. The shadows of the 2 vermilion birds around him merged, the flames disappeared, and he slowly landed towards the ground. 3 feet off the ground, Chin Luo looked at the red hair expressionlessly, and a long spear appeared in his hand. The red-haired, struggling to get up, leaned against a boulder and looked at Chin Luo with a dying breath. Cough, cough. I didn't expect you to be so strong. I still underestimate you. The grin was bleeding, but the redhead was smiling, not in the least bit angry at the defeat. Any last words? Without any emotion, Chin Luo had already decided to kill. Even if Maggie learned later, he couldn't let the red hair live. Let go of my companions, they don't even know I'm Tenryubito, and if I had a choice, I'd rather be the redhead I am now than the creator of what I did. His eyes lit up, and the red hair looked at Chin Luo sincerely and prayed. Frowning, Chin Luo was thinking. Let them go, they are just a group of adventurers, this incident is all my orders, because I have to do it, otherwise my family, even them, will be wiped out. Bleeding constantly from his mouth, the redhead no longer wished he could live, because he knew the character of the man in front of him. Tell me about the person behind you. Chin Luo neither agreed nor refused. Rarely, After listening to Qin Luo's words, the red hair was silent for a while. It is not the Gorosei, 5 elders, nor Tenryubito, who really control the world government, but I am, Tenryubito and Gorosei, 5 elders, just the dogs he brought out. Endless sarcasm, anger, hatred, and, in a word, extremely complex. Diaresis: if I don't rescue Tianwang and those old guys, everything related to me will be wiped out. Like 100 years of history that disappeared. Even you can't resist. Qin Luo sullenly thought of Roger. He only needs one finger to kill me. Endless melancholy, red-haired eyes filled with unwillingness. Last question, is Roger what you call I am? The red hair was stunned for a moment, and looked at Qin Luo with some doubts. I don't know why. How many years has the captain been dead? Last time Top told the red hair about the last time he saw Roger. It was a huge irony that D was in front of me all the time, Roger, Vegapunk, all the time. Somewhat sad, the red-haired crazy big good money smiles. He used to be the crew of the other party, but he has never noticed it, and his other identity, the world's first scientist, has always been under the eyes of the world government, but I didn't realize it. How ridiculous is this? The world government has been searching for it for 800 years. Because of this reason, the Tenryubito families disappeared one by one. Until now, the 20 royal families, except those who did not enter the Holy Land at the beginning, have all been destroyed, leaving only the current 10 families. The so-called creators, the nobles of the world, have always been other people's dogs, not even dogs. I'll tell you everything I know, you spare my companion. The smile disappeared, and the red hair looked at Qin Luo, pleading again. If they resist, I will let them come to accompany you. Very calm, Qin Luo didn't give the red hair a chance to bargain. Obviously, the redhead also knew that, and for this reason, he didn't say anything, just told it. Chapter 400 Roger and Vegapunk may be just one of D's identities. In fact, his real identity is the prince of the D family. 800 years ago, there was a country in this world. The D country, like the current world government, rules the entire film. See. I don't know exactly what happened 800 years ago, but I guess that the current world government was built on the destruction of the country of D, and the leader was I am. As for our 20 Tenryubito families, they were once Im's men. Time passed quietly, and a few minutes later, the red hair said what he knew and some guesses, but he didn't know. What he knew was only iceberg. If I'm not mistaken, the island of the end, there will be all explanations. After listening to the redhead's dictation, Qin Luo's brows became even tighter, because he couldn't contact him at all. He is not a D family, and has nothing to do with the world government, but why did Roger arrange those so-called stepping stones for himself? Is it because he is Chinese? The more chaotic it became, Qin Luo Vivi was gasping for breath, because for some reason, he always felt that a crisis was approaching. Qin Luo, I hope you can keep your word. His face was full of sadness. The red-haired raised his hand, armed and condensed, and slapped it directly on his forehead. The corner of his mouth was bleeding. The red-haired face maintained the last smile and chose to cut himself off. He has red hair, and no one can kill him. If he wants to die, he kills himself. The long spear in his hand dissipated. Qin Luo could clearly feel that the red-haired life breath had begun to disappear. Looking at the scene in front of him, Qin Luo still had no expression. Before, clutching the red-haired collar, he disappeared in place. At the same time, with the start of the war, with the island as the center, everything was affected. Perhaps Nami and others also realized that a quick decision must be made. For this reason, they all suppressed their opponents, shortened the battle circle, and kept control on the island. Compared to the combat power of the first Emperor pirates, the red hair side looks a little depressed. Nami, Perona, Sun Wukong, Kuzan, Fujitora, the top combat power of the first Emperor pirates. Here is the hometown of the first Emperor pirates. All kinds of first Emperor troops, and technological weapons, can make the entire red-haired pirates are tied up. No matter how much Beckman and others resisted, they couldn't escape, so, starting slowly, some cadres began to die, or they lost their ability to resist. Only the top cadres like Beckman can stand. All stop. A loud bang in the sky, a supreme will, radiated the entire Shuang Island, and instantly interrupted the battle. The two sides separated, endured the domineering spirit that fell, and returned to their respective camps. Slowly landed, Qin Luo raised red hair and stared at him, and by himself, the whole scene was silent. Captain. With their eyes split, Beckman and the others looked at the red hair in Qin Luo's hands, all with red eyes, full of disbelief, because their captain had lost all breath and was already dead. With a flick of his hand, Qin Luo threw the red hair to Beckman and others, then took back the conqueror and watched calmly. Captain. All of them were painted, and Beckman took the red hair in embarrassment and put it on the ground, his face full of pain. First Emperor. Looking up, Lackey and the others stared at Qin Luo with murderous intent in their eyes. Before the red hair died, I promised him that I would spare your life. Shut up, what are you, the first emperor? Before Qin Luo finished his words, a cadre scowled and roared with hatred. The originally calm face turned gloomy, and the expressions of Nami and others around him were also full of crisis. First Emperor, I'm going to kill you. Having lost his mind, a cadre soared into the sky, staring at Qin Luo with hatred, wanting revenge. Snack. However, before it approached, a lightning bolt penetrated through his body, causing the entire chest to be hollow. I don't know whether to live or die. Withdrew her hand, Zizi thundered away, and Nami snorted coldly. With this move, the two sides that had been suppressed completely broke out. Even Beckman didn't have time to stop it. All the remaining cadres rushed towards Qin Luo, because they couldn't accept the death of the red hair. After decades of ups and downs, the two sides are like family and friends, drinking together and taking risks together. They are a whole, but now, the redhead just died in front of them. How does this make them accept that even if they know it is death, they have to take revenge? They didn't even think about it at all. And Qin Luo, looking at these swarming people, his originally gloomy face became completely gloomy. He is not the virgin, nor is he a soft-hearted person. Since the other party is not appreciative and wants to die, then he will fulfill himself. This is a very simple thing in the first place. As for the so-called hesitation and emotion, there is no such thing. All killed. Shenhan exited, Qin Luo looked at everyone like a dead man. I am keeping my promise, but there is a premise that the other party does not resist. Since the other party resists, then the so-called promise is not a promise. As for explanation, the other party doesn't have that qualification, and Qin Luo doesn't need to explain. The battle broke out again, but it was doomed that Beckman and the others could not resist much. In order to prevent the first Emperor pirates from being damaged, Qin Luo also took action. CGAC, in just a few minutes, there was no longer a standing enemy on the entire field. With blood on his sleeves, Qin Luo looked at the corpses all over the floor with an extremely indifferent expression. The battle on the island was over, but in the waters of the first Emperor pirates, the pirates who once had red hair rubbed off against each other were fighting with the first Emperor's army sent by Maine. Of course, not long after, with the appearance of Nami and others, the killing was staged again. That day, that sea area was scarlet, and the sea was full of corpses. And the strong bloody smell also attracted many sea creatures, and they were full. Outside the number, the world's big news. The 4 commanders of the Revolutionary Army fought against the Admiral of the World Government Army, and both lost. The Great Root, the Revolutionary Army Dragon appeared, and the World Government's Military Marshal, Kong. Big news, the Vinsmoke family has regained control of North Blue from the World Government. Because of the Dragon's intervention, East Blue's world government has been losing ground, occupying half of the sea. South Blue has kingdoms, pirates, and merchants vying for territory. The world government can't be maintained, and there is chaos. The 5 emperors of the New World. The first emperor pirates suddenly intervened in West Blue, and the supernova Kadri Bej led an army of 100,000 first emperors to forcefully destroy the mafia and the world government, and fully occupied West Blue. Outside the ship, on the Great Route, Marine Marshal Sengoku led Marine to the Shimail Kingdom, the headquarters of the Revolutionary Army. Soon after he returned in embarrassment, Marine suffered an unprecedented hit. In the battle between Marine and the Revolutionary Army, the first emperor led Thor Nami and Sun Wukong to intervene strongly and killed the Revolutionary Army Shichibukai Bartholomew Bear, the demon Ivankov, the legendary sword god Kushiro, the Kadri Koala, and Amazuna. Long, the leader of the Revolutionary Army, was severely injured by the first emperor and rescued by a mysterious man. Marine Admiral Kizaru is an undercover agent of the Revolutionary Army. Marine hero Garp, for the sake of his son, betrayed Marine and was killed by the first emperor. Marine Marshal Sengoku, dying of serious injuries, Marineford in grief, Marine Admiral Ryokugyu, Onagumo, under the command of the Crane, went into a state of alert. New World, the red-haired pirates who just announced their participation in the First Emperor Pirates, betrayed for some unknown reason, fought with the First Emperor, and the entire army was wiped out. In the sea area of the First Emperor Pirates, the pirates under the red-haired pirates, led by Thor Nami and Ghost Sword Perona, have all been wiped out without humanity, with more than 300,000 people, blood flowing into rivers, and a glimpse of the past. All corpses. The ruler of the world government, it is suspected that 2 Gorosei, 5 elders were killed by the first emperor. The king of the 3 ancient weapons may be a living body. Both the Revolutionary Army and the world government will suffer. The first emperor pirates have their own benefits. Only the king of the 5 emperor clowns is left in the new world. Facing the first emperor pirates, what should we do? Next, will the first emperor pirates completely rule the new world? In just 2 or 3 days, the whole world was shaken, and countless reports, whether true or suspected, big or small, spread like a tsunami throughout the war-torn world, and once shocked the sea. The first emperor pirates, the world government, the Revolutionary Army, the Marines, the underworld, and the kingdom are all mixed together like a mess of porridge. The most dazzling ones belong to the first emperor pirates, the Revolutionary Army, and the world government. A behemoth. No one knows what the world will be like in the future, because the current war has spread all over the world, and only the strong will have time to watch these reports. As for ordinary people, there is only one belief at present, and that is to live. The collapsed order is far more cruel than imagined. In this chaotic and sick world, the only way to survive is to survive. Mourning, hatred, resentment, blood, and corpses are the best interpretations right now. Extermination of humanity, burning, killing, and looting are already commonplace. Human tragedy, nothing less.